Chapter 81 What Tao Heart Devil Seed. This is clearly the great method of overwhelming heroic spirit. I want to be a hero. I want to carry out acts of chivalry and uphold justice. After having absorbed a certain amount of true qi, a madman from the Thunder God and Mother sect suddenly said. Duan Yun felt deeply gratified. His chivalrous heart had indeed touched this villain. Why do you want to carry out acts of chivalry and uphold justice? Duan Yun asked. Because I have been moved by you, realizing that this world is sullied with too many who murder and commit debauchery. Especially within the Thunder God and Mother sect. There's too much filth. I too have indulged in my own madness, causing the death of many innocents. Now, I just want to take action. The madman spoke with his head overheating. Yes, his head was now beet red, emitting white steam, indeed showing that it was extremely hot. Duan Yun let go and asked, Whom do you want to take action against? To take on the madman of the Thunder God and Mother sect, especially the most deceitful one, that bastard who rose to power by snitching on me. I want to kill him, the madman said angrily. How rare for you to have an epiphany suddenly. Then go ahead, said Duan Yun. The madman politely bowed to Duan Yun and with determination in his eyes, walked towards the town. The madman, named Lu Yu, once had a junior named Wang Diren. The two initially got along very well, listening to the thunder together, eating together, and sharing insights into the cultivation techniques they heard. Later, when the sect needed to select 9 enlightened disciples for the sect leader to personally infuse with the divine iron skills, logically, Lu Yu, who had served the sect faithfully for many years with decent talent, should have been chosen. But in the end, it was his junior, Wang Diren, who got selected. Lu Yu was happy to see his junior selected, even though after the infusion, his junior became his senior. However, Lu Yu later found out that he was not chosen by the sect leader because Wang Diren had secretly informed on him to an elder. Once, the sect wanted to conduct cultivation technique experiments on young children by opening holes in their heads to listen to the thunder. But the results were not good. Many of the children were killed on the spot by the thunder. Among the few survivors was a little girl who bore a striking resemblance to his deceased sister. That was the first time in many years that Lu Yu felt compassion. Indeed, ever since he began thunder listening, his disposition had become easily excited, fearful, and sometimes mad, but more often than not, it was cruel. He had assisted with many such experiments before, and he had already lost count of the number of children who had died at his hands, feeling as naturally about it as if he were torturing a bunch of animals or ants. He had not felt this reluctance to act in a long time, but this time was an exception, and so he secretly let the girl go. Unexpectedly, it was revealed by Wang Diren. This wasn't really a big deal. The sect did not expose the matter publicly, nor did he face any punishment, but it left an unfavorable impression of him with the higher-ups of the sect. There is a saying within the Thunder God and Mother sect. In listening to thunder, not only is the head tough, but the heart must be tougher. Meaning that one must be colder and more ruthless to hear more secrets from the Thunder God and Mother above. It was this impression that prevented him from being the one chosen for the infusion. Lu Yu had been angry about Wang Diren's secret reporting, and he had regrets, regretting why he had let such a little girl go, so that someone could use it against him. Just because she looked like his sister? What the hell is a sister? If possible, if his sister were alive, just to be chosen by the sect leader to be infused with divine skill, he would be willing to capture his sister for experiments himself. Those who practice thunder listening are prone to anger, and Lu Yu should have sought Wang Diren for settlement, but he dared not. After the infusion by the sect leader, Wang Diren became his senior and his strength greatly increased. The divine skill received through the infusion naturally made him feel afraid and suppressed. So he chickened out, continued to numbly practice thunder listening, silently accepting it all, and even forgot about the incident. But just now after young hero Duan absorbed his brain power, he felt the heroic spirit. He didn't understand, but he thought that's what heroic spirit was. Heroic spirit is remembering grievances. It is taking action. So his brain, numb from the prolonged thunder listening, started recalling many things, and he began holding grudges. He decided to take action against Wang Diren. Fight to the death. As if you've got something on me. In an instant, the natural suppressive force Wang Diren held in his heart dissipated. It's all because of young hero Duan's heroic spirit. At that moment, Wang Diren was in a room in town, fondling the life flute on his head, while instructing two fellow sect members with his back turned to them. Ever since he became an enlightened individual, he often spoke with his back to people, because he knew he was now completely different from his sect members. Just then, Lu Yu approached and, without turning his head much, asked, "Any clues?" "Yes," Lu Yu replied. If Wang Diren had turned around for a longer look, he would have noticed something off about Lu Yu. His hair stood on end. His scalp was flushed red, highly abnormal. But he didn't. Thus, a piercing, tragic scream suddenly filled the room. "You! Have you gone mad? Why are you stabbing my arse?" "Ah!" With the dagger piercing and stirring, Lu Yu, his hair standing tall, began to act heroically. Duan Yun stood not far away, listening to the commotion inside. It was his first time absorbing a person and spreading his heroic spirit through a more direct method, so he came to observe the effect. Seeing this, he was quite content. This man was really acting heroically with his renewed conviction. "Ah! No good. Someone's tampered with his life flute. No, that's not right. Old Demon Duan is nearby. He's been hit by Old Demon Duan's Dao Heart Devil Seed technique." Voices from the Thunder God and Mother Sect people were heard one after another in the room. Duan Yun couldn't help but muse. What Dao Heart Devil Seed technique? This is clearly my make a fresh start. Heroic spirit overwhelming technique. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Electricity shot out, shattering roof tiles, as Lu Yu, blackened all over, burned himself up, releasing all the true qi and lightning within. His brain's true qi had been drained, but not the rest within his body. Then, with tragic cries rising, Lu Yu, holding his former junior now senior, Wang Diren, perished together. Seeing this, Duan Yun found it quite comforting. Although the man was a lunatic who did many bad things, he dared to strike against his evil sect members for the sake of heroism, making up for some of his wrongs, dying a worthy death. Right? I'll take over the heroic acts from here. In an instant, the sound of robes tearing through the air continued, signifying the people from Thunder God and Mother Sect and Red House closing in on this place. Old Demon Duan has stirred up trouble again. They've discovered Old Demon Duan's whereabouts. Duan Yun took a glance, then walked straight out of town, heading towards Bai Lake. Tonight was just a small taste of his blade. He wasn't ready to go on a killing spree just yet. Since the town still had many innocent townsfolk like Old Chin from the roast meat shop, and people like Shining who wasn't a villain but liked to join in the excitement. Rushing to massacre in such a place might harm the innocent. Yes, in these next few days, he would find a suitable place, time, and whether to cleanly kill those who deserved it, and make his heroism known. Chapter 82. I'm not a bully. The once lively Yusher town, due to the appearance of Old Demon Duan, shocked many people and scared many as well. Among those who reacted the fastest was not Jin Ladu, the fourth elder of the Thunder God and Mother Sect, nor was it Hong Ying, the elder of the Red House who had a feud of murder with Old Demon Duan, but a bird. A bird claimed to be the most beautiful in the world. The peacock took flight, like a peacock spreading its feathers, incredibly beautiful. His movement technique was very fast, unusually so, leaving a trail of afterimages in the dim night. He spread his arms, flying out of the town. In the night he resembled a bird demon covered in feathers. Yet he did not catch up to Old Demon Duan. Peacock stood by the lake, looking at the dark and deep water, muttering, "Old Demon Duan, are you afraid?" Inside the carriage, Hua Wen and Hua Wu, having heard the commotion, were tightly embracing each other. The name of Old Demon Duan was like a magical spell, especially knowing he was nearby. It filled the sisters with profound fear. Now, they could only hope that Old Demon Duan and Peacock would both be injured, ideally perishing together. Only then would the pitiful and miserable sisters have a slim chance of survival. The lake was emerald green, with a bone-chilling coldness. Duan Yun swam in the lake not much slower than a fish. Apart from the last time he had entered the water carrying the box with Shining, this was his first night's swim in this lake. Tonight there was no moon, just a few stars, and Duan Yun, submerged in the water, could see the starlight through the surface. He felt like a fish, swimming freely in the water. The lake at night seemed bottomless. Sinking further would leave one in total darkness. Duan Yun tried diving deeper, only to find that the lake was too deep to reach the bottom momentarily. As he dove deeper, young hero Duan instinctively felt a little scared, as if he was isolated from the world, heading towards an unknown netherworld. In the pitch-dark waters where one could barely see their hand, currents flowed occasionally, as if man-eating water ghosts were roaming around, choosing their prey. Duan Yun recalled the rumors he heard back in the town. There was a giant carp in the lake, its age unknown. It had devoured many children playing by the lake and fishermen. Afterward, Duan Yun resurfaced. Fa and Li were two Jianghu people and also two fishermen. Their skilled weapons included not only knives and sticks but also fishing gear. The fish hooks hanging from their fishing rods had several times caught enemies by the neck like hidden weapons. Thus, for them, fishing was not only pleasure but also a form of cultivation. Meeting old Demon Duan committing violence tonight happened because they were unlucky with their fishing, unable to catch any fish for half a day, and decided to change the location. Honestly, even now, both were still terrified. The scene of old Demon Duan violently sucking the brains of those from the Thunder God and Mother sect was horrifying. They sat here, fearing old Demon Duan would suddenly appear behind them, telling them after much consideration, he had decided to silence them, then grabbing their heads and start sucking. At such times, the town where many heroes gathered was clearly safer, yet Fa and Li still insisted on fishing. As Fa said, how can one go fishing and return empty-handed? If they really went back empty-handed, their wives might mock them to death. So they continued fishing, trembling with fear. The lake was quiet at night, with some withered leaves floating by the shore. Logically, there should be fish here, big fish. But they had been fishing for an hour and caught only 3 small fish. Then Li said, Fa, we have 3 here. Although small, it's not completely fruitless. Sitting here always feels creepy. Fa had just wanted to mock him for being timid. But at that moment, there was a loud splash from the water. Big fish. A ghost. The next moment, Fa's fishing rod flew out of his hands. Not until that water ghost climbed onto the shore did the 2 men realize it was actually a person with water weeds wrapped around their head. Then, the person asked, how much for this fish? We're not selling the fish. In the middle of the night, it's like running into a ghost. Fa and Li, having been scared out of their wits by the swimmer, were in a foul mood and spoke unkindly. The next moment, Fa's legs went weak, nearly dropping to his knees. Holding the fish basket, he said with a trembling voice, it's young hero Duan. This is for you. It turned out that they only realized it was old Demon Duan who had been absorbing people just now when he removed the water weeds from his head. Could it really be that he was coming for them? Seeing their reaction, Duan Yun said, how can that be right? You must pay for things you buy. I'm not a bully. Fa was the quickest to respond, saying, young hero is right, but the fish really isn't big. Just give whatever you think it's worth. Duan Yun paid a piece of silver and walked away with the fish basket. Fa and Li watched his figure disappear into the night. Li remarked, bro Li, old Demon Duan actually paid for the fish. Fa's temples throbbed as he said, people like him paying for things is what makes him the most terrifying. For a moment, Fa felt like the few pieces of silver in his hand were akin to money paid for sparing his life. When Duan Yun returned to Yuzhu Villa, Shining had already come back. Seeing him soaked, she and Murong exchanged surprised glances. What were you doing? Shining asked puzzledly. Holding the bamboo basket, Duan Yun said, suddenly felt like eating fish, so I went into the water to feel around. Murong retorted, looking at you, I thought you dragged back another chest containing your sister. Just this, so small. Duan Yun, looking at the 3 small fish he bought, followed up. You obviously haven't fished at night. It's pitch black, you can't see your hands in front of your face. Catching these 3 is only because I have a 1 in 10,000 talent for fishing. Okay. Duan Yun's words were half true, half false. It was true that fishing at night was tough. It was pitch black, and after feeling around for a while, all he got was a mass of aquatics, not even a single fish. The false part was that the fish were so small, and not caught by him, but bought with silver. At this time, Morong began to reprimand the 2 siblings, saying, You two, one only knows to watch operas all day. The other goes fishing in the lake instead of proper business at night. Do you not know how chaotic it is outside? Are you teaching us how to go about our business? Duan Yun's face darkened as he spoke. Shining added, Exactly. How could we not know if it's chaotic outside? Duan Yun nodded. The weakest one here should mind your own business. Don't wait until your sisters come to kill you again and have us come and deal with them for you. Exactly. Shining strongly agreed. Listening to the siblings' harmonious responses, reminiscent of husband and wife, left Morong cold and trembling, speechless for a moment. There was no helping it. Last time when they killed the eunuch, he had indeed been the weakest. In Yuju Villa, being weak is the original sin. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the Thunder God and Mother sect, 4th Elder Jean Ladu, looking at the dead bodies that died together on the ground, said profoundly, We can't wait any longer. Select 2 young disciples to come over. We must use that method to find that demon. We must find him. As he spoke, the life flute on his head trembled uncontrollably, causing a painful ringing in people's ears. This signified that Jean Ladu was furious. Chapter 83 The old demon is right behind you. 4th Elder Jean Ladu is extremely adept at killing. One might say he has the most ways to take lives within the sect, bar none. Leaving aside those commoners like ants he's killed, even if the martial artists of the martial world were piled up, it's feared they would form a tower that would allow him to ascend to the heavens, to meet the Thunder God and Mother. Such matters seem innate, due to the cultivation techniques and secrets granted by the Thunder God and Mother, the majority of which are related to killing. The disciples of the Thunder God and Mother sect are well known in the martial world for not being easily provoked, and 4th Elder Jean Ladu is a god of death among gods of death. For many years, few have dared to touch anyone from the Thunder God and Mother sect, not to mention their elders. Jean Ladu also found it strange. Compared to many sects in the martial world, their Thunder God and Mother sect was the most peaceful, just following the sound of thunder, not vying for territory, at most occasionally going mad, randomly killing some people or kidnapping some for the experiments as told by the Thunder God and Mother. Yet such a well-behaved sect was targeted by a shameless guy. Is there no rule anymore? No more morality? Seeing his dead disciples, Jean Ladu's rage was unavoidable, and likewise, excitement. The excitement of encountering such a person. Although he did not want to admit it, a sense of dread also truly existed. Even he had to take a second look at the techniques of old demon Duan. It started with using a sword, killing with sword fingers, then came a set of inscrutable and unpredictable knife technique. Even his senior brother Tai Dishing died under this demon's claws, and now, tonight, suddenly there's the Devil Seed Dao Heart technique. How many more tricks does this old demon have up his sleeve? It's simply unfathomable. But certainly, he doesn't have as many ways to kill as him. For a moment, Jean Ladu's eyes were once again filled with confidence. The confidence of a strong man. Thus, he decided, after finding traces of old demon Duan tomorrow, he would join forces with the women of Red House to launch a thunderous strike. The more thunderous the better. Against such a demon, they don't need to speak of any martial world's morals at all. Inside Yuju Villa, Duan Yun extended his right hand, and a faint blue arc of electricity leapt from his palm. A bit of it brushed his hair, causing his strands to flutter instantly. This absorbed power of thunder and lightning was quite peculiar, but sadly not strong enough. Currently, it could barely be used to style hair. Perhaps only by absorbing more people could it yield sufficient power. At this moment, Duan Yun, while tousling his fluttering hair, was contemplating with his extraordinary wisdom. He needed to find the right opportunity soon to launch a thunderous assault on the madmen of the Thunder God and Mother Sect and the Red House Madwoman. The more thunderous, the better. Thinking of rolling up his sleeves and slaughtering through these evil demon heretics, both Duan Yun and his trusty saber Wenro were excited. No, in Duan Yun's senses, even the sword Immortal Dharma behind him was excited. In the room where the window was open, Duan Yun stood in a sword stance absorbing moonlight. Behind him the jade sword Immortal Dharma changed between white silk and black silk, between dignified and indifferent expressions, continuously transforming. Early in the morning, there were already many figures on the graveyard of Yuzhu Villa. Unless it's Qingming festival each year, it's difficult to find more than 5 people on this vast graveyard. Because too many corpses were buried here, ordinary people would feel uncomfortable here. If one must describe it with words, it would be like Tai-in unbearable. Moreover, this area often had some bizarre supernatural events, such as those brightly dressed straw men, making it even less of a place people dared to visit. But at this moment, there were quite a few people walking on the mountain. Leading them was a person with a long iron flute stuck in his head, giving off an eerie and demonic aura. They were naturally people from the Thunder God and Mother Sect. In fact, the people of the Thunder God and Mother Sect didn't like this graveyard either, as it affected their senses. But now they were on the mountain. They needed to reach the high ground of this graveyard. The method they were about to use to track old Demon Duan wouldn't be impacted by the graveyard, but required higher ground to perform better. And naturally, following them were those from the martial world eager to watch the scene unfold. Of course, not many came. Most were waiting at the foot of the mountain for news, not daring to get too close to the people of Thunder God and Mother Sect. On this graveyard, where graves and black bamboo were everywhere, should the Thunder God and Mother Sect lose control while performing their methods and go mad, these onlookers could end up dead and buried on the spot. Only the bold dared to follow and spectate. Early in the morning, Shunning hurriedly cooked breakfast, and while leaving some for Duan Yun, she rushed off to join the crowd. This region hasn't been so lively for many years, not even during the height of the jade mine excavation. The demon-slaying conference is indeed grand. This morning, Duan Yun got up not much later than Shining. Right after Shining left, he was already eating his porridge. Compared to yesterday's meal, which only included red bean curd, today there was an extra salted duck egg. Whether it's red bean curd or salted duck egg, both go perfectly with porridge. Duan Yun ate quickly, because he was about to do some reconnaissance. He had asked himself where would be the best place to break through the enemy lines. The answer lay right behind him. The vast graveyard behind Yuzhu Villa was his best battlefield. The graveyard was dotted with dense death energy, which would aid him in deploying his breaking body sword energy. However, the death energy on the graveyard varied in concentration, and he needed to find a relatively dense area that could provide a sustained output. When the time came for these people to slay demons, he wanted to see whether it would be his own breaking body sword energy driven by death energy that prevailed, or the numerous evil demons that came to kill him. Despite having won many victories, Duan Yun remained humble. The night before, as he escaped across the lake, he sensed a formidable enemy. Although many at this demon-slaying conference seemed to be mere spectators, there had to be experts hidden among them. Duan Yun quickly headed up the mountain. The graveyard in Yusher town had a long history, and few people ventured to its peak. As such, the scenery around the mountaintop was little known. Here the black bamboo grew sparser, as if even these pervasive plants struggled to proliferate. The earth was tinged red, as if suffused with blood. It was not clear how the graveyard had formed, whether the mounds of graves had spread from the mountaintop down or accumulated upwards from the base. However, it was evident that the mountaintop held more bones, and the grave mounds and tombstones were more damaged. Some places even had the feel of a mass burial ground. This is the place. At this moment, Fourth Elder Jean Ladu stopped and declared. A group of 7 halted, while a dozen or so martial artists from the martial world did not dare to advance, instead retreating some distance to watch from afar. Jean Ladu looked at two young disciples and said indifferently, "The sect will remember you, and the Thunder God and Mother in the heavens will guide you." With that, he pulled out two metallic tubes. These dark golden tubes were slender but had an internal mechanism that allowed them to extend in length with a pull. Swiftly, Jean Ladu now had two one-jong-long metallic fine tubes in his hands. The tubes were also inscribed with tadpole-like characters, Thunder language only decipherable by members of the Thunder God and Mother sect. Then, Jean Ladu opened his mouth and emitted some syllables. These syllables were flat, devoid of any intonation, alien to human speech. A cold wind blew as if he was communicating with evil spirits of the graveyard, or perhaps with divine beings in the heavens. He raised the hand holding the metallic fine tubes high. Upon seeing this, one of the young disciples was numb-faced while the other trembled violently, with tears and snot flowing. The next moment, the two tubes were thrust down fiercely. A sudden crunching sound of flesh and bone breaking filled the air, as the two disciples of the Thunder God and Mother sect were impaled by the metallic fine tubes, entering from the top of their heads and exiting through the belly. The pair were left hanging on the fine tubes like broken dolls. What was terrifying was that they didn't die instantly. Their limbs still moved and they gasped for breath through their open mouths. As the metallic fine tubes were soaked with blood, they emitted a eerie hum. That hum, along with the life flutes floating above the heads of the Thunder God and Mother sect members, vibrated in resonance. The humming carried far, even audible to those at the foot of the mountain. Fourth Elder Jean Ladu, holding the blood-stained fine tubes, closed his eyes. Found it. But why is it so near? Jean Ladu suddenly turned and saw a handsome young man standing 100 paces away. The young man was also looking at him, his eyes clear as he said, "You're looking for me." Old Demon Duan. Chapter 84. Sudden, decisive battle atop the graveyard hill. Duan Yun walked towards the graveyard. The further up the mountain he went, the denser the death energy seemed. Duan Yun had always believed that the fresher the corpse, the denser the death energy, just as proven by the bodies of several eunuchs. However, he soon realized that this was not the only criteria. Visibly, the further up the mountain he traveled, the older and more dilapidated the grave mounds appeared, and the corpses contained within them were even more ancient. Yet the death energy got denser the higher he went. Could it be related to the resentment at the time of death? Duan Yun analyzed. Because of different trail paths up the mountain, it wasn't until he neared the summit that Duan Yun discovered footprints of some people. Were there others on this graveyard mountain, not just one or two? The black bamboo at the summit had become sparse, and Duan Yun soon discovered the tracks of those from the Thunder God and Mother sect. When he first saw that scene, even the old demon Duan himself was taken aback. He stood behind a cluster of black bamboo and saw two young disciples of the Thunder God and Mother sect impaled by two long, thin metal rods, standing there like skewered meat. The metal rods entered through their skulls and exited from the lower abdomen. Naturally, they couldn't survive. What was horrific was that, at that moment, the people were still alive, constantly moving their limbs and gasping for air. Subsequently, a strange humming sound suddenly resonated. Duan Yun suddenly noticed the divine iron of Mother, placed near his lapel trembling. He even felt a slight vibration in both of his hands. The vibration was very subtle. Had he not been extremely sensitive to it, he might not have even noticed its presence. This was the blood sacrifice skills of the Thunder God and Mother sect, resonating through the lives of the disciples and everything related to the Thunder God and Mother in the vicinity. Earlier, Duan Yun had guessed that these mad followers could sense him because of the metal shards on him, but he didn't expect the sensation to be so thorough. The slight tremors in his hands were probably caused by the delicate iron dust left behind when touching these divine iron. Sure enough, the demon who was caressing the metal rods turned its head at that moment. Duan Yun called him a demon because this member of the Thunder God and Mother sect was indeed sinister. The previous mad follower who could transform lightning into a long mace only had tadpole runes etched on his back, but this one had them all over his body, even on his face. The runes on this individual didn't seem to be tattooed on the skin, but rather appeared to grow from the flesh, much like moles on a human body. Especially when combined with the way he caressed the metal rods that impaled humans, it appeared even more demonic. At that moment, the demon looked towards him, and he also looked towards the demon. Although the demon looked frightening, young hero Duan, embodying both righteousness and heroic spirit, suppressed the fear in his heart and said, "Are you looking for me?" Old demon Duan, a person from the Thunder God and Mother sect, exclaimed in panic. Duan Yun originally came to scope the place, but had not expected to run into someone like this. And Jean Ladu originally came to confirm the location of the old demon, only to find the old demon right behind him. Both were startled for a moment. However, both being masters, they quickly calmed down. Jean Ladu planted the two human charms into the ground, revealing a spine-chilling smile. Old demon Duan, I've been looking for you for a long time. Upon hearing this, Duan Yun angrily retorted, Your old mother is the demon. I am a young hero. Young hero. Young hero. His expression suddenly became fierce, even startling the elder Jean Ladu. This young hero today will wipe out all of you blasphemous evil demons. Let you know what it means. Before Duan Yun could finish his sentence, Jean Ladu suddenly bellowed, Old demon Duan is here. Come quickly. His inner strength was incredibly powerful, and standing on high ground, his shout echoed not just across the mountain tops but throughout Yushir town. Duan Yun, caught off guard by the sudden shout, became even more furious and exclaimed, Why are you yelling so loudly? Saying that, he rushed forward with a fierce expression. Bloodthirsty spectators on the mountainside, upon hearing it was old demon Duan, panically retreated while trying to shield those beside them, yet also craned their necks, fearing missing the exciting scene. At the foot of the mountain, upon hearing the roar, the elder of Red House, Hong Ying, took the lead and flew out, followed by the other fairy maidens. For a moment, the gravesite was abuzz with fairy maidens in red dresses flying high, resembling a Fate Yin mural. Hearing the commotion, heroes from the martial world also rushed towards the mountain, among them Shening and Lang Yiming and Lang Yishua, who were disguised as ordinary martial world women. Not to mention Shening. Even the Murong brothers wrapped in mats and sleeping were startled by the roar, shouting "Damn!" as they crawled out of their mats and headed up the mountain, as the heroes from the martial world trampled over the graves in their rush to join the excitement. Duan Yun and Jean Ladu had already started their fight. Facing the suddenly ferocious charge of Duan Yun, Jean Ladu sensed danger and did not dare to be negligent. He pulled the life flute from his head, put it in his mouth and started playing. Pure true qi surged from his dantian, quickly flowing through his meridians and rushing to his lips. His large red robe vibrated with the true qi, autonomously fluttering without wind as the flute sound suddenly intensified. The piercing flute sound carried a sharp qi force, and for a moment, qi arrows like a shower of arrows struck towards Duan Yun. With his left hand, Duan Yun swept out his sword, emitting a water moon-shaped sword qi that sliced through the air with a piercing crack. Water moon sword energy and life flute qi arrows collided, resulting in thunderous explosive sounds. Jean Ladu flipped his hand, the life flute still between his lips, continuing to play qi arrows from the life flute, while his hands scooped up two human charms. Whether it was the life flute on his head or the long life charms used for performing immortal law techniques, all were his weapons. No one knew better than him how to kill. These human charms were about 10 feet long, each skewering a disciple, looking like two large skewers of meat. Jean Ladu lifted his hands, and the human charms whizzed toward Duan Yun, thrusting at him. Life charms were very long, a 10-foot-long weapon that was considered extremely lengthy in the martial world. Long weapons are usually not light, such as the Overlord Spear, which takes a domineering approach. However, these human charms were the exact opposite. They are very long, exceedingly thin, and very light, designed for agility and devious attacks. The people on the two human charms were torn into pieces by the force, blood scattered like rain, while the human charms attacked Duan Yun from multiple directions like two poisonous snakes. What Jean Ladu needed to do was thrust, using every possible way, speed, and angle to thrust. Because of the rapid thrusting and excessive changes, the human charms almost formed a net, seemingly intending to completely entrap Duan Yun. The air around was filled with dense sounds of sonic booms. With every patch of land that the human charms passed over, the reddened graveyard along with the bones smashed into mud. Jean Ladu didn't think he could trap old demon Duan and mince him just like that. But he knew the situation was going very well. All he needed to do was delay for a bit longer until the Madam and other demon slayers from Red House arrived, when everyone would join forces to surround and attack this old demon. Old demon Duan today was doubtlessly going to die. The next moment, Elder Jean Ladu's brow furrowed slightly, as he suddenly saw an ethereal Dharma image emerge. Embrace Sparrow Tail. Jade Sword True Chi streaked forth, forming a dignified and beautiful sword immortal Dharma image of the white silk jade sword behind Duan Yun. Countless jade arms extended from the Dharma image, with dozens of silver-white jade sword finger sword energies explosively striking out. With a loud bang, the unstoppable momentum of the human charms wavered from the blast. The ground where both stood abruptly sank, forming a giant pit, with bones and soil swirling wildly. A disciple from the Thunder God and Mother sect, unable to dodge, was impaled through the thigh by a flying leg bone and rolled on the ground, screaming miserably. Indeed, it was a battle between the fourth elder and old demon Duan. Even the fallout from their battle was terrifying. Facing Duan Yun's counterattack, Jean Ladu skillfully used his human charms. He planted one on the ground, allowing his whole body to swiftly ascend along it. With the dual human charms planted, he positioned himself high up like one on stilts. For a moment, he seemed like a figure with swords strapped to his feet, looming overhead and continuing to thrust down at Duan Yun. I've got plenty more tricks. Damn! Jean Ladu suddenly gasped, his breath hitching. That's because down below, Duan Yun's sword in hand became a blur, which was an overlay of numerous sword chi. Simultaneously, the Dharma image behind him also transformed. From white to black, from upright to indifferent, from straightforward to mysterious and inscrutable. And crucially, the Dharma image's sword finger turned into a sword shape. Rotation. God damn it. 7-layered spring rain rotation. Chapter 85. Young hero Duan is going to battle against the hordes today. Duan Yun's true chi inside his body was spinning wildly, and his robes fluttered without any wind, his young hero ponytail fluttering along. At the same time spinning was the 6th layer of spring rain. Facing a formidable enemy, Duan Yun habitually unleashes his powerful moves directly. But the 6th layer of spring rain was evidently not strong enough. Last time, against that thunder madman, the 6th layer of spring rain couldn't kill him with one strike, and this thunder madman before him was evidently even more bizarre than the last. Thus, in just an instant, his mind merged with Black Silk Jade Sword Immortal. The 7th layer of spring rain. Spin. Before the 6th layer of spring rain could follow the blade out of its sheath, Jean Ladu felt a hair-raising sensation. People who often kill are particularly sensitive to danger. He stepped on human charms like stilts and retreated backward, trying to temporarily avoid the sharp edge. Run your mom! A sound like wind chimes rang out. Duan Yun's swearing was crude, but this sound of wind chimes was quite crisp and pleasant. Yet this sound made Jean Ladu's face drastically change. Because he recognized it, it was the sound of extremely thin sword chi violently spinning and slicing through the air. Without any hesitation, the muscles on his body twisted wildly, each muscle like a bizarre worm. Simultaneously, the tadpole runes on his body also seemed to come alive. Sizzling. The electrical lightning on each of his muscles was squeezed out by him, shooting outward, to confront the sword light that came as sudden as a spring breeze. The first wave of sword light had arrived. Sizzle. The electrical lightning was torn apart, and then occupied by new electrical lightning. Jean Ladu barely protected his body, but his floating body was already being chaotically battered by the sword chi. Where the sword light traveled, the nearby air was shredded into pieces, forming white whirlpools. Electrical lightning fell, blasting out numerous pitch-black holes on the ground. Old Mother Thunder, though barely protected his whole body, but Jean Ladu was experiencing untold suffering. The rotating sword light seemed endless and extremely tricky. He dared not relax in the slightest on his entire body. This level of squeezing the Old Mother Thunder hidden within his body. Every piece of his flesh was in pain. Yet he had no choice but to persist. Just persisting will be fine. Old Demon Duan's sword chi is terrifying. But isn't the Old Mother Thunder inside me terrifying too? Old Mother Thunder. Invincible among humanity. Only he himself knew what he had given up to obtain these Old Mother Thunder. It was a wholehearted service to Thunder God and Mother Sect while listening to thunder. Like the sound of wind chimes, the sound of the sword still echoed in the ears, not much different from before. But the next moment, Jean Ladu's pupils rapidly shrunk to 2 dark spots. Because that cold sword immortal Dharma image had swung out a strike. This strike only had 1 layer of rotation and had no fancy tricks. But there is an ancient saying, an accumulation of earth becomes a mountain, from which wind and rain emerge. An accumulation of water becomes a deep abyss, from which flood dragons are born. This extremely simple first layer of spring rain, however, seemed to be a stone that stirred up 1,000 layers of waves. The sword chi of 6 layers of rotation had been weakened a lot by the electrical lightning. But as this first layer of spring rain arrived, the rotating sword momentum suddenly intensified. The sword light swept past like snow waves. The electrical lightning wrapped around Jean Ladu's body was chopped to pieces, along with the blood that was shredded by the sword light. Boom! The ground bore several extremely deep sword marks. 2 disciples of the Thunder God and Mother Sect couldn't dodge in time, and their bodies were instantly chopped into pieces. One of them had their buttocks flown onto a tree. While Jean Ladu spat blood, his body flew out like a kite with its string cut, spinning and smashing into a mountain peak. At a critical moment, Old Mother Thunder protected his entire body's vital points, but non-vital parts remained a tragic sight. His right arm and left calf had flesh scraped clean, exposing stark white bones. Jean Ladu felt tremendous pain, even more painful than when the life flute was inserted into his head. Every inch of blood and flesh throughout his body felt a tearing pain. His body smashed into a big crater on the mountain peak, dust and smoke billowing. But even then, he was still struggling to hold his body up, wanting to retreat further. Drag. Just need to drag on until the reinforcements arrive. Don't run. Let me kill you first. Duan Yun, holding Wenro, charged into the dust very gently. He unleashed a 7-layer spring rain, and he was really tired. Okay? True Chi was hugely depleted, and he was gasping unevenly. Jean Ladu was frightened out of his wits, covered in mud, struggling to retreat. He tried to call for help, but whether it was his disciples or those spectating martial world heroes, all ran faster than each other. Jean Ladu gritted his teeth and rolled on the spot. Taking advantage of the moment when the dust obscured Duan Yun's vision, he sinisterly thrust forward with his human charm. Duan Yun stepped back, dodging, then his leg muscles bulged, suddenly launching an assault. Jean Ladu looked both terrified and focused, moving his human charm in a maneuver. He knew old Demon Duan was also tired, wanting to kill him efficiently, but he would never agree, because he had extremely rich experience in killing. His human charm was extremely sneaky. At this moment, the assaulting Duan Yun seemed to be about to crash into the human charm, and Duan Yun could only helplessly raise his arm to block. Jean Ladu's eyes showed a trace of joy, squeezing the last bit of Old Mother Thunder into the charm. A flesh and blood body also wants to match my sharp and peerless human charm. With a clang, like morning bells and evening drums, the human charm in Jean Ladu's hand almost flew off. Thanks to Duan Yun's elbow not yet arriving, a sword chi had burst out from his elbow first, clashing with the human charm. Elbow sword. Jean Ladu's shock was interrupted by a sharp pain, as old Demon Duan almost simultaneously kicked out. Duan Yun used both hands and feet. The toe sword chi sinisterly pierced through his chin. Ugh! Shameless! The next instant, Duan Yun not only used his limbs but also stretched out both arms and legs like drawing a bow. Bright white sword chi struck from all angles. Jin Ladu reacted very quickly, using his movement technique, resulting in 7 or 8 bloody holes appearing on his body instantly. Damn it, didn't dodge a single one. This was mainly because his limbs had been severely injured by the last round of sword light, especially his left leg and right arm, which were reduced to white bone, severely hindering his movements. With a swish, a sword finger pierced his temple, and thus the one who thought himself invincible in killing, Elder Jin Ladu of the Thunder God and Mother sect, fell. The next moment, a palm was already pressed on his head. Jin Ladu only felt a stagnation in his mind, realizing a strange suction was draining the true chi from his brain. Previously, those bold martial world heroes had already fled in panic, tumbling and crawling, even getting their buttocks stuck on trees. But still, some people, after catching their breath, climbed up the bamboo to watch bloodthirstily. So, they watched the terrifying scene of old demon Duan holding the head of Thunder God and Mother sect, madly absorbing true chi. At this time, the women of Red House came. The leading Elder Hong Ing turned into layers of shadows, moving extremely fast. But in the next instant, when she saw old demon Duan holding Elder Jin's head and madly sucking, her figure involuntarily stagnated. Jin Ladu, with a dull gaze, saw this scene and couldn't help but use his last bit of strength to shout the last roar. Old demon can't do it anymore, attack! The next moment, Duan Yun's hand holding his head tightened, and he was lifted up single-handedly, facing the approaching red building women. He boldly declared, "He's done? Who's next?" Elder Hong Ing, thinking of the pain of losing her daughter, saw Duan Yun also gasping hard, just about to go forward, when the dazed Jin Ladu suddenly shouted, "I want to be a hero." This statement was quite sinister, shocking Elder Hong Ing and abruptly stopping her attack. Dao Heart, Devil Seed. Don't wait, kill. At this moment, Jin Ladu, as if restored to clarity just before death, suddenly spoke. Then, a distorted thunder burst out from his neck. Jin Ladu's body relaxed, and he died then and there. He had served Thunder God and Mother his whole life, only regretting he couldn't continue to serve. So he refused to let old demon Duan's Dao Heart plant a devil seed until his death. Only clean and tidy would Thunder God and Mother come to pick him up after his death. Duan Yun noted that after this man died, the thunder true chi in his brain dissipated, no longer able to be absorbed, and he couldn't help but say pity, tossing the corpse carelessly on the ground. Then, standing on the mountain peak, he looked at the red building women gathering below and proclaimed dominantly, "What are you waiting for?" Chapter 86. Fairy, I'm here to send you to hell. What are you waiting for? Duan Yun stood atop the mountain summit, in front of the corpse of Jin Ladu, an elder of the Thunder God and Mother sect, speaking to a crowd of enemies. For a moment, his heroic spirit and grandeur were boundless. Naturally, he took the opportunity to catch his breath as well. Logically speaking, after dealing with this group of Red House mad women, the primary enemy should be wiped out. Those following would most likely be just watching the excitement. But thinking of the Birdman who had pursued him last night, Duan Yun decided to hold back some of his strength. Evil demons are always treacherous and cunning. Today he, Duan Yun, fighting against a horde of demons, must not only fight to his heart's content but also preserve his life, in order to continue the long-term duty of demon extermination in the martial world, restoring peace and clarity to the world. Yes, he wanted it all. Thus, he hurried to recuperate, enabling him to cast sevenfold spring rain several more times. After all, casting such a powerful move more than 2 or 3 times a day would be overexertion, which is not conducive to physical and mental health. The monster from the Thunder God and Mother sect was truly formidable, even stronger than the last madman who could wield thunder maces. Duan Yun did not get wounded, but he broke out in sweat. Drenched in sweat, he felt the exhaustion of running a 1,500-meter race on a hot summer day during school days. It would take at least 10 minutes or so to recover to a state where his face wasn't red, and he wasn't gasping for breath. This was the price he paid to avoid being surrounded and attacked to the utmost. Faced with Duan Yun's provocation, Red Elder Hong Ying immediately saw that he was trying to buy time to recuperate, or deliberately pretending to, waiting for them to attack and then counterattack. Amidst the mountain-top breeze, her half-white, half-black hair fluttered with the wind, and her slender and voluptuous figure was outlined under her gauzy, nearly invisible dress, exuding a captivating charm. For a long time, although the Red Building fairies participated in murders, they were still called fairies because not only were people too afraid of being killed and harmed to dare to disobey them, but they were also truly beautiful, carrying the beauty of fairies descending to earth. Hong Ying knew that now she had to avenge her daughter and maintain the prestige of the Red House, which might be her only opportunity in this lifetime. Thus, whether the opponent was truly delaying or feigning, they had to act. Strip! At Hong Ying's command, the clothes fell from the bodies of the dozen or so Red Building fairies present, as well as from herself. Damn! What's going on? Old Demon Duan was also shocked by this scene. Forward! At Hong Ying's command, all the Red Building fairies floated backward. Now their movement technique was extremely graceful. Combined with their speed, they looked like blurs. If Duan Yun were to describe it, it was like they had been pixelated. He was confused as to why these mad women suddenly stripped and retreated. Was it a plea for mercy to escape? The next moment, a series of explosive sounds from bamboo breaking suddenly rang out, and each of the Red Building fairies landed on the bamboo. The thick bamboo dipped into large arcs, like drawn bows. If the bamboo was the bow, then the Red Building fairies on the bamboo were the arrows. They are going to shoot at the old demon, an onlooker realized. Airborne maneuvers. As soon as the voice fell, the bamboo shafts exploded into splinters, and the Red Building fairies truly launched themselves out, charging towards Duan Yun. Their qinggong was already graceful, and their speed extremely fast. With the added momentum, they were swift as arrows. What kind of fighting style is this? Duan Yun was also momentarily bewildered and raised his hand to shoot out Jade Sword Finger Sword energy, followed by Water Moon Sword energy. The Red Building fairies, originally shooting towards him at high speed, transformed their shapes, somersaulting in the air, and surprisingly dodged. One could only say that the movement techniques of the Red House were indeed unique. Such effortless aerial maneuvers were not necessarily matched even by masters of the Tongyu realm. At that moment, two Red Building women dove at high speed, with flashes of silver glinting, and Duan Yun sidestepped to dodge. His body barely missed the twin silver flashes, just by a hair. Those were two very narrow curved knives with extremely fine edges that actually resembled Wenro somewhat. Since Duan Yun had acquired Wenro, he knew that such knives were perfect for beheading. In an instant, about a dozen Red Building women, either in pairs or trios, attacked him from various angles. Duan Yun's first reaction was not to withstand the assault and counterattack, due to the unpredictable movement techniques of these women. Just after the last two Red Building women finished their assault, another ear-piercing bamboo explosion sounded. This turned out to be an array. When combined with these fairies, it can be dazzling and constantly intimidating. The important thing is that they distract the mind. Shameless! The fairies weaved through the air like a net, and Duan Yun maneuvered between their brief pauses. During this, he had to keep an eye on Red Elder Hong Ying circling above his head. That's the biggest threat. It's like you're fighting in the ring, and someone below is holding a flying knife or a hammer, aiming at you. The bloodthirsty audience did not expect that these dozen or so Red Building fairies would actually trap old Demon Duan with this kind of ingenious array. You can only say that having a lot of people is indeed awesome. Later, when old Demon Duan can't hold on anymore, they should swarm him, and in the future it will be said that they also participated in killing the demon. The situation is very good. Hong Ying also felt that the situation was very good. Embrace Sparrow Tail. Behind Duan Yun, the Sword Immortal Dharma of the Jade Sword Immortal emerged once again. Dozens of strands of Jade Sword True Chi shot out rapidly, forcing back the Red Building fairies on the east side and even piercing through the abdomen of one fairy and the thigh of another. But after these women took off their clothes, they seemed to enter a blood rage mode. Instead of retreating after getting injured, they attacked Duan Yun even more fiercely. When the fairies on the east were repelled, those on the west took the opportunity to launch an even more ferocious attack. Because they had discussed that, after defeating the old demon Duan, they must definitely take his life. Old demon Duan has a terrifying reputation, but when seeing him today, he truly looked handsome. This sight excited the women even more. They were going to win. It would be soon. And Hong Ying, who had been circling above, had already begun gathering strength to deliver a fatal strike. Duan Yun hadn't expected that these mad women would not be difficult to defeat one by one, but together they actually caused him trouble. Once again, the red building women from the east attacked. Breaking body sword energy. Release. This time, Duan Yun didn't dodge at all. He extended his hand, and strands of fine sword chi immediately surged from his body like a silken rain. This sword chi was smoky and misty, leaving the impression to others that it wasn't very lethal. Some even thought it was an eye-blocking skill old demon Duan was forced to use in defense. The red building fairies charged through blood without caring, their curved knives drawing arcs, intending to cut through this fragile mist and slice through Duan Yun's vital body parts. Their perception was correct, since breaking body sword energy was indeed good at killing mosquitoes. But what about adding death energy? Almost at the same time, a trembling droning sound suddenly erupted, and white sword chi instantly turned black. Hong Ying above suddenly remembered something and her face changed dramatically. Dodge! Sadly, it was too late. A series of shrill screams suddenly rang out. The fairies who had just been injured and still fought through blood had collided with the black sword chi. At that collision, their silky smooth skin and the flesh underneath were penetrated, creating dense holes. The blood spurting out almost turned to mist by the sword chi. 3 red building women were wounded and fell to the ground, unable to get up. The remaining fairies hurriedly used their movement techniques to dodge, but this black sword chi was not only incredibly swift but could also be accelerated, and its trajectory changed by Duan Yun. The droning sound chased them like maggots clinging to bones. Ah! Ah! Despite their quick movement techniques, having recently charged so fiercely, and with the old demon's sword chi being so unpredictable and swift, they simply couldn't dodge in time. Their legs and arms were pierced with countless holes, undoubtedly slowing down their movement further. As the pain surged into their sea of consciousness, their bodies trembled. The sword chi in the water moon shape swept across, cutting them into 2 halves. The quicker you die, the less pain you'll have to endure. At that moment, the elder Hong Ying in the air could no longer bear it and dove down. As she descended, her body became even more blurred, as if invisible flames were burning around her. Here it comes. Duan Yun stomped down with his right foot, right onto the body of that monster from the Thunder God and Mother sect. Following this fresh death energy, the breaking body sword energy transformed into a fine long pillar of sword chi. Umph! The descending body of Hong Ying couldn't help but stiffen as her abdomen was pierced by the sword chi. In that instant, counterattacking successfully one after another, Duan Yun, wrapped in black sword chi, seemed like a god or demon in the eyes of the audience. Originally, the martial world heroes who had wanted to rush in and deal with old demon Duan all retreated. In just a snap of the fingers, the previously excellent situation took a drastic turn for the worse. It can only be said that old demon Duan's methods are terrifying indeed. Who else in the field can be a match for old demon Duan? Star shift. At that moment, the wounded red building elder Hong Ying suddenly let out a fierce cry. The whites of her eyes disappeared, her jade arm extended, and for a moment her true chi turned into tiny spherical shapes, like the flow of starlight. And so, the situation changed once again. Chapter 87. Since ancient times, good and evil cannot coexist. If I don't enter hell, who will? As Elder Hong Ying executed the star shift technique, the breaking body sword energy that had initially pierced through her abdomen unexpectedly reversed its course, launching a counterattack at Duan Yun. Duan Yun clenched his teeth, tensed every muscle in his body, and extracted the breaking body sword energy from within him at the fastest speed. The sword chi merged with the surrounding death energy, transforming into black sword chi that represented death, emitting a soul-stirring hum. With a loud boom, two streams of black breaking body sword energy collided instantaneously. The humming sound abruptly intensified, as if two ferocious swarms of bees were tearing at each other. For a moment, Hong Ying stood bare and wounded in her abdomen above, while Duan Yun stood determinately below her, engaged in a standoff. Boom! The ground where Duan Yun stood suddenly sank, and broken bones flew out from the heaps of earth in the graveyard. The newly generated breaking body sword energy from Duan Yun was too hastily formed, and not as domineering as the sword chi that came through Star Shift. Therefore, a string of black breaking body sword energy bore down on him, piercing into his shoulder. Duan Yun's clothes were torn to shreds, and the flesh and blood of his skin were instantly struck by the black sword chi. Old Demon Duan has suffered. Old Demon Duan is wounded. The Star Shift technique of the Red House is truly worthy of being called immortal law, able to return the validation, turning the enemy's attack back onto themselves. The crowd was thrilled, their eyes all blazing with excitement. However, the very next moment, Elder Hong Ying, who had managed to counterattack, showed an expression of pain and surprise. This move is great, but sadly it is lacking in power. With a loud bang, the black breaking body sword energy that had initially reversed the heavenly gang once again reversed, blasting through Hong Ying's chest. Consequently, she drifted backward like a torn paper kite. The Star Shift technique may be miraculous, but it was only temporary. If Duan Yun could not be killed within that moment, Duan Yun, being the creator of the breaking body sword energy, would naturally regain control. Duan Yun, having sustained an injury to his shoulder and pierced through by his own sword chi, blood flowed continuously. Yet, he disregarded his wounds, his face filled with heroic spirit, persistently sending these injured fairies to hell one after another with his sword finger. Duan Yun, was not one to hold grudges, but why did these mad women have to harm him twice? I am quite fragile, even somewhat anemic, all right? The rare times that Duan Yun bled seemed to be courtesy of these red-building women. But as his final sword finger pierced through the neck of the last struggling red-building woman, silence fell. The deathly black sword chi continued to hum around him, exuding a terrifying oppressive aura that was unique to a young hero's heroic spirit. Duan Yun stood there, breathing heavily, with the blood still flowing incessantly from his shoulder. This was indeed the most severe injury he had received since he began his path in swordsmanship. Damn it, these wounds won't heal for 6 or 7 days, and they're likely to itch when they scab over. This was also the first time the participants of the Demon Slaying Conference had seen old Demon Duan bleed from a wound. But no one dared to take advantage of the situation, not even daring to speak. Sisters Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue stood among the crowd, their complexions pale as paper. From the corpse of the county magistrate of Lishui City, they had already sensed the terror of this newly emerged demon, but they hadn't expected that it was just the beginning of his horror. The fearsome sword finger that had once filled them with dread was merely a common skill for this young demon. Despite the large number of people here, many of whom had boasted about swarming up to tear old Demon Duan to pieces, were now silent, frightened into stillness. The so-called opportunity to strike him while he is ill, take his life while he's injured, surge with the intent to kill did not arise. Because how could old Demon Duan look in any way ill? He was indeed injured, with a piece of flesh gone, blood flowing. Wait, Duan Yun raised his left hand, and instantly, a bolt of electricity sparked from his palm, entering the wound. Thus, the once bleeding wound stopped bleeding. As an obstetrician, it made perfect sense to use inhaled lightning for hemostasis. Damn it! Even this bit of blood won't flow out. Duan Yun took 2 steps forward, and the people retreated 2 steps back. Such was the oppressive force of heroic spirit. Only one person was the exception. That was a woman, seated lightly upon the bamboo. The woman was clothed in green, her silhouette almost merging with the bamboo. Yet her beautiful face was exceedingly proud, just like a victorious peacock. This was Duan Yun's third time seeing the other party. That woman in disguise. The first time he encountered her was on a carriage in Yusher town. The second should be the mysterious figure he saw when he dived into the lake, and now this was the third. The dangerous individual had appeared, but unexpectedly it was a woman. A woman who only liked other women. Clap, 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 clap. Crisp applause arose in this silent environment, extremely grating on the ears. Peacock looked at Duan Yun, clapping her hands while sighing with admiration. Brilliant! Truly brilliant! All these demons and old demons that have emerged these years are nothing but a bunch of worthless trash with inflated reputations, bringing down my own standards. But you, old demon Duan, not bad. You've got a bit of the flair I once had. The other person's demeanor was very proud, and her tone equally so. Duan Yun looked at her and asked, "Who am I? Some old demon? Evil fiend and heretic. Reveal your name." Everyone, including Peacock, knew of his habit of playing the part of the young hero, so Peacock did not refute but replied, "Peacock." Upon hearing this, the crowd couldn't help but take in a cold breath, expressing their shock. Peacock demon? No, the patriarch. That one who even defiled the imperial concubine? Who else but him? He's here too. If Duan Yun, this newly emerged old demon, succeeded with his innovative ways, treating everyone equally, then Peacock Demon has long been famous, having taken indulgence to the extreme. Now that these two great demons have met in the graveyard, it's hard to say who is more wicked, more terrifying. Because one is an extremely vile newly emerged demon head, while the other is the long-renowned and notorious Peacock Demon. It seems the two old demons don't get along. The man who had lost 2 toes due to the sword energy earlier struggled to climb up so he could get a clearer view. If these two demons were to fight, even dying would be worth it. Duan Yun could sense the terror of the woman before him through the tone of the gathered evildoers. And he had finally understood. This character was not a woman, but a man. Peacock was still seated on the bamboo, calm and composed. Some say I dare not provoke you, dare not defile you. Indeed, I never defile men, but you possess a fallen cultivation technique. If you, before everyone, degrade yourself and let me violate you, then I shall spare your life. Ha ha ha. Upon hearing Peacock's words, Duan Yun couldn't help but burst into laughter. Does this damn thing have some sort of problem? Peacock's words seemed like a joke, yet they also represented his absolute confidence. He looked at Duan Yun, saying, "You've defeated one enemy after another, appearing high-spirited, but what's the reality? You're panting, most of your true chi is depleted. How many more times can you wield that rain-like demon blade? That dark sword chi of yours is rather domineering too, likely related to death energy. But how much more can you use?" In a moment, his extremely beautiful eyes seemed as though they could see through the human heart. With just a few words, he had thoroughly gauged Duan Yun's condition, putting immense pressure on Duan Yun. This fellow truly was a rare adversary. However, Duan Yun did not retreat, declaring boldly, "You put it well. That is just who I am, the young hero. Since time immemorial, the righteous and the evil have never coexisted. So what are you, the demon head, waiting for?" Peacock revealed a charming smile, and for a moment, she did not seem human, but more like a bird. He looked at Duan Yun and leisurely said, "Then come at me. Come at me." The two demon heads spoke and stepped towards each other. For a time, silence fell all around, as if even the air had stilled. Chapter 88. The Turning. The eightfold spring rain you never imagined is turning. Hua Wen and Hua Wu, the two sisters, stood among the crowd, watching as two demons confronted each other. Hua Wen, holding her sister's hand, said, "Let's run away. No matter who wins or loses, this might be our last chance." Yet at this moment, Hua Wu laughed, her square face brimming with femininity, even describable as alluringly sensual. In Hua Wen's eyes, that was sheer madness. These days, she could no longer discern her sister's state of mind. Or rather, she could not even discern her own identity. From embodying heroic spirit with a renowned heroic name as the Ling Shui twin heroes, To a fallen woman seduced and defiled by the peacock, every transformation was like an earth-shattering upheaval, all occurring within an exceedingly brief span of time. To the point where Hua Wen still didn't know how to face herself. How she wished they'd never encountered the big medicine that was old demon Duan. Then they would still be the renowned Ling Shui twin heroes, the hard-working medicine cultivators who joyously consumed big medicine, practiced chivalry, and upheld justice. The exact state of Hua Wu, she simply couldn't comprehend. Only that it was obviously more serious. I won't leave. I want to see which demon falls at the hands of the other, Hua Wu said with a vacant look in her eyes. Duan Yun walked down from the mountain's top, while the peacock had already lightly descended from the black bamboo below. One of them radiated death energy and claimed to be a young hero, and the other was like a supremely beautiful peacock, arrogant and cruel. No one spoke because either of these individuals could silence a crying child. Not to mention that there were two of them now, looking set for a deadly duel. A duel between demons was often spectacular, as it was a contest of who was more evil, who more ruthless, who more cunning. When they were about 50 steps apart, Duan Yun and the peacock simultaneously halted. This was already the most perilous distance. Against sword chi or blade chi at such a range, dodging became exponentially more difficult. In the next moment, the peacock suddenly leapt up. Seeing this leap, everyone felt dazzled because the peacock was truly beautiful, with a captivating allure that could take one's breath away. His upper garment slipped down, revealing smooth skin, and even though everyone knew he was a man, they couldn't help but gaze fixedly. But at that moment, the bodies of Hua Wen and Hua Wu started to tremble like sieves, because they had felt that same amazement back then and subsequently lost consciousness, only to be defiled afterward. The peacock soared, cunningly discarding his clothes while approaching Duan Yun like a peacock spreading its feathers, beauty incarnate. Yet Duan Yun suddenly felt a chill to his very bones. The moment the peacock spread his feathers was also his most beautiful. And if at that moment you only focused on his beauty, or were so entranced that you couldn't look away, that would be the time of your demise. Unsure whether it was a technique or the peacock was naturally that captivating, Duan Yun momentarily couldn't avert his eyes. The peacock's smooth skin, the swaying of his chest, was like layers of surging waves washing into his eyes, rippling into his sea of consciousness. The next moment, the peacock's pants also began to loosen. Duan Yun sensed tremendous danger and resolutely chose to close his eyes. But in a high-level duel, closing your eyes even for a moment was a massive risk. Duan Yun had the habit of unleashing powerful moves upon encounter. The peacock demon was the same. From the outset, he deployed his many years killing move, Peacock Feather. His pants tore open, and from beneath sprang countless colorful rapid shadows. These were all sorts of hidden weapons, some fast and urgent, some colliding with each other, some spinning in the air. Each weapon, if released individually, would already be lethal, but at this moment, they were like a sudden downpour in the sky, as numerous as cow hairs. It was hard to imagine that a person's crotch could hide so many hidden weapons. Unknown how many masters had died under the peacock's crotch, including the Tang sect's young master Tang Feng, famous for his use of hidden weapons. It was said that Tang Feng was the most gifted of the younger generation of the Tang sect, deeply adored by the sect leader. But that year, as Tang Feng's mastery of hidden weapons matured, and he ventured into the martial world, he encountered the peacock and died under his crotch. This was but one of the countless wronged souls under the peacock feather. Clearly, today there would be yet another wronged soul. The instant Duan Yun closed his eyes, he did not dare to hold back. Breaking body sword energy surged out madly, merging with all the surrounding death energy. The black silk jade sword immortal, who was always skilled in killing moves and defensively aggressive, this time opted for an ironclad defense. The smoky, fog-like black breaking body sword energy transformed into a forest of sword pillars, encircling Duan Yun. A harsh buzzing sound rose among the mountains, followed by short and long distortions. That was the collision of Peacock's hidden weapons with the breaking body sword energy. For so long, the black breaking body sword energy had been unbreakable, but this time, the peacock's hidden weapons were smashing it into dents and deformities. Despite being heavily protected by the breaking body sword energy, Duan Yun still felt that terrifying piercing force. This peacock was truly fearsome, but can evil really surpass justice? Damn it! 7 layers of spring rain. Spin. The moment the breaking body sword energy was punctured, Duan Yun's hands conjured a series of sword-light shadows, spiraling out. With a sound like wind chimes, sword light emerged behind Duan Yun as the Dharma image of black silk jade sword immortal manifested. The 6 swirling layers of sword light collided with the colorful hidden weapons in the air, creating a terrifying explosive roar. The spring rain blade light blocked the peacock feathers, but sadly, it was not enough. At that moment, the sword light of the Dharma image unleashed another layer. This layer of spring rain undulated in the sky, bringing 6 together to form 7, with an ominous swirling blade chi drawing an extremely long white streak in the sky, as if it had split the heavens in two. Chapter 89. Waves of energy rolled around for a moment, and the air flowed like water. Nearby black bamboos were uprooted, and several bloodthirsty spectators, regardless of gender, had their undergarments blown away. This was just the aftermath of the 7-fold spring rain breaking through the peacock feather. But what about the peacock in the midst of the 7-fold spring rain? The peacock in the sky was plummeting downwards. Even with his pride, he did not want to take on the sharp edge head-on. But when he tried to evade, the spring rain was omnipresent. The spinning sword chi cut through his body, bringing up a trail of blood. And then, feathers. Colorful feathers. The peacock's body was surrounded by broken feathers. These feathers were colorful, with a lustrous sheen, utterly extraordinary. Suddenly, his smooth jade-like body was covered in these feathers. With a bang, the peacock smashed into the ground, creating a big hole upon the massive impact, turning the nearby black bamboo into shattered fluff. He stood there, coughing up blood, yet a charming smile hung on his face. Great sword technique, but still not enough, the peacock said, smiling. Feathers in disarray hung on him. These colorful feathers, being somewhere between tangible and intangible, seemed both like real feathers and as if formed entirely from chi force. And it was these bizarre feathers that blocked Duan Yun's usually invincible 7-fold spring rain. Duan Yun was panting heavily, his arm wielding the sword numb. Having already fought continuously, he was significantly fatigued, and now he had consecutively used the breaking body sword energy and the 7-fold spring rain. It was no wonder he was exhausted. To others, old demon Duan might seem unfazed, even just slightly injured, but in the peacock's eyes it was fatal. His beautiful face, still not free of the colorful feathers, resembled a human-like bird, creating a sense of horror. I bet you at most can enact such a sword technique one more time, but I can block it more than once. The peacock was confident, as if he could see right through Duan Yun's heart. Nearly everyone believed that old demon Duan would be defeated this time. Defeated completely. If it were just a one-on-one, who would fall, old demon Duan or the peacock, remained uncertain. However, Duan Yun had first bloodily battled the elder of the Thunder God and Mother Sect and the fairy of the Red House, not only depleting much of his strength but also revealing all his moves. While the peacock had always been resting easy. Demon-slaying conference, yet old demon Duan was about to die at the hands of another demon. Isn't that an irony? Duan Yun was moving, the nearby black bamboo swaying. The peacock seemed to have an absolute advantage, but Duan Yun knew he had not yet reached a dead end. This graveyard was filled with death energy, and by activating the breaking body sword energy, he could penetrate through the graveyard in any direction, even creating countless caverns to confuse others, catch his breath, and make a comeback. But he knew, even after catching his breath, there was no guarantee he could kill the peacock. Indeed, this was the strongest and most troublesome opponent he had ever encountered. At this moment, the peacock had crawled out of the pit and was closing in. The eerie feathers on his body fluttered, bearing immense oppressive power. Duan Yun, who had contemplated retreating deeper into the black bamboo forest to find a new opportunity, suddenly perked his ears, gripping the handle of his sword, and said, "You bet I could only use such a sword technique one more time, and maybe you're right. But what if my next strike is even stronger?" The peacock halted in his steps. "Spin. Damn it. Let the eightfold spring rain spin." Duan Yun's arms bulged with muscles, veins popping on his forehead, as he suddenly roared. In the woods, it was as if another old demon Duan was shouting. For a moment, the peacock felt a chill in his heart and wanted to retreat. But at that moment, old demon Duan had already charged over. Duan Yun dragged his sword along, the blade enwrapped in spinning sword chi. Spin! Damn it, spin! There seemed to be just one old demon Duan, yet the voices on the mountain sounded like more than one. Everyone was scared stiff. They couldn't understand what was happening. With a whoosh, the sword chi roared and spun outwards. The surrounding black bamboo and soil instantly turned into dust. Even the wind seemed to be shredded into tatters, but it wasn't just that one direction of black bamboo and soil that was reduced to dust. It was also behind the peacock's right. He realized all at once that it wasn't just one person. Two old demon Duans? Duan Yun's strike was not the eightfold spring rain, it was still the sevenfold. But he knew the power of the strike was definitely more than just sevenfold. Because he was not alone. At this moment, watching another swirl of spring rain, Duan Yun's originally icy and ferocious heart felt a touch of warmth. You wait at ease, relying on a horde of demons in a war of attrition to come out on top, wanting my life, but I too have friends. Now, let you taste what is called the companionship of justice. Seeing this, Peacock's face changed abruptly, trying to escape, but at this moment, a rapid shadow suddenly attacked, cutting off his retreat. Peacock's head swayed, and the afterimage brushed past his ear, avoiding it. But in the next moment, the afterimage crashed into a tombstone in front of it. With a bang, the tombstone exploded in an instant, and the afterimage, carrying a strange chi force, rebounded back, striking straight at Peacock's face. Peacock raised his hand to block, and the afterimage shattered under the impact of his chi force. Only then did he see clearly. It was a brick. A sinister and ferocious brick. The brick did not hurt Peacock but slowed his steps. In the next moment, two sword techniques with nearly identical origins transformed into spring rain, swirling in from two directions, leaving Peacock with no way to avoid. In just an instant, the sky changed color, and Peacock felt a sharp pain, his beautiful body becoming a blur. The situation once again took a drastic turn for the worse. Bloodthirsty spectators, some half buried in the ground, some hanging from trees, some straddling tombstones, and some riding on people, had their mouths agape, unable to utter a word. So sudden, so terrifying, so exhilarating. Peacock raised his head and let out a bird-like piercing shrill, his colorful feathers suddenly flaring, as if about to soar into the sky. Thereafter, he was engulfed by sword chi and truly soared into the sky. The two waves of enveloping spring rain burst forth with a terrifying momentum, soaring straight into the heavens the moment they wrapped around Peacock. For a time, the swirling sword light, like a tornado, shed chi force that sliced painfully against the skin. And Peacock at the core? Snap, 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 snap. Peacock's thick feathers dulled, instantly shattered, then grew back frenziedly only to shatter again. The relentless spring rain eventually comes to an end. But for Peacock, the process was agonizingly long. By the time the sword chi dissipated, Peacock fell to the ground like a ragged sack. His body was devoid of colorful feathers, covered in deep, bone-exposing wounds. Duan Yun strode forward, grabbed him, and with a thrust of the elbow sword, hit him squarely in the abdomen, bending his entire body like a shrimp. Then, a jade sword finger pierced through his temple. Duan Yun let go, and Peacock, now completely unable to stand, fell to his knees in front of Duan Yun with a thud. No one spoke. No one dared to speak. Peacock was shattered all over, his eyes filled with unwillingness. He had been watching the changes silently, calmly observing 2 rounds of battle, wanting to take advantage at an opportune time, wanting to torment old demon Duan to death while undefeated. He always enjoyed torturing others unscrupulously. But in the end, he was ambushed by old demon Duan and surrounded. It was a sneak attack. Old demon Duan claimed to be a young hero, appearing to fight valiantly against all heroes. Peacock wanted to take advantage of this naivety of the young demon head, to take his life. He didn't expect old demon Duan to have such a contingency plan. In sheer cunning alone, he had lost. Peacock's cruelty and pride vanished in an instant, his torn mouth begging, "Old demon Duan, let me go. You can change me into a woman and defile me. Treat me like Star Fury, as long as you let me go." Duan Yun grabbed his hair and said, I said young hero. Let you go, is it possible? You dead demon." Saying that, he grabbed Peacock's head and with a slash, cut it off. With a swish, blood splattered. Duan Yun, holding Peacock's head high, roared, "Peacock demon is dead. Who else dares?" Silence, absolute silence. Only the sound of the wind over the hills. "Run!" Suddenly, someone blurted out. In the next moment, dust rose on the hilltop as heroes scrambled to flee, countless graves trampled into ruin. "Run! Old demon Duan has gone mad." Chapter 90. I've really realized it. For a moment, the people on the graveyard scattered like seeing a ghost, running faster than rabbits. Duan Yun held the head of the peacock demon, shouting loudly, "Why are you running?" Young hero Duan acted for heaven today by slaying the peacock demon at the demon-slaying conference. Remember this. These people were already scared half to death, having no time to listen to his young hero games, fearing they might be killed if they ran too slowly. Once lively, the graveyard, where even tombs had burst open in flower, suddenly regained its silence, leaving only corpses on the ground, both intact and dismembered. Duan Yun looked at the head of the peacock demon, whose once beautiful face had now turned much uglier, then lifted his leg and sent a swinging kick. With a thump, the old demon's head flew off like a kicked ball. Afterward, Duan Yun began searching the bodies. The peacock demon, being the strongest, was cut most thoroughly by the spring rain blade, hence nothing much was found on him. Duan Yun only picked up a few colorful hidden weapons from the mud. Next were the women of the Red Building. The recent chaotic battle here, comparable to a tornado sweeping through woods, had also affected these bodies, making it difficult to pull them out from the mud and search. After searching 2 corpses of the Red Building women, Duan Yun came to a realization. These ladies were fighting him completely bare, leaving no place to hide any valuable items. Nevertheless, he still found something valuable, a hairpin embedded with an agate on the head of an elder of the Red Building. Young hero Duan's mood improved considerably, since, after all, exorcising demons and defending the way was what he, as a young hero, should do, but getting some reward afterwards made it even better. Next came the madman from the Thunder God and Mother sect. He took the long spike used by the madman for stabbing people, recognizing it was made of metal. During this, he noticed that the object could extend and shorten, quite intricate. Then there were 2 iron flutes from the heads. After dealing with all this, Duan Yun didn't want to search anymore. Too tired. It had been a long time since he had been this tired. He walked down the graveyard, suddenly stopping his steps, because, at that moment, he saw a square-faced woman holding the head of the peacock demon, her eyes staring blankly. He couldn't help but ask, "Was he someone to you?" The square-faced woman looked at him and replied, "An enemy. That's good," Duan Yun responded. He was worried she might be the woman of the peacock demon, and having killed the peacock demon today, she would be a newly widowed woman. Though this place was a graveyard, and the peacock demon deserved to die, he was inherently kind-hearted and didn't wish to face the sorrow of a widow at that moment. On the way down the hill, his body felt very tired, yet his spirit was quite relaxed. He was going home, back to Yuju Villa. On the graveyard, after Duan Yun had left, another square-faced woman emerged from the black bamboo forest. Hua Wan, holding Hua Wu's hand, said with a frightened face, "Sister, let's go quickly. That was close." Having just brushed past old demon Duan, she thought Hua Wu would suffer again. The peacock demon was killed by old demon Duan. What dreadful fate would they, being turned from men into fallen women by the peacock demon and possibly captured as playthings, meet? Luckily, old demon Duan seemed not to recognize them or simply didn't notice them. He asked just one question and left. After all, they had undergone earth-shattering changes since before, not to mention being tortured horribly by the peacock demon. Holding the head of the peacock demon, Hua Wu suddenly said in a low voice, "Sister, do you know? I'm pregnant." What? Like a bolt from the blue, Hua Wen was stunned. Caressing her own belly, Hua Wu said, "I really am pregnant." Hua Wen quickly took her hand, saying, "Quick, let's go find divine Dr. Shui. Get it?"
No.
Hua Wu shook off her hand and said, "I want to give birth to this child. Ha ha. Give birth. Give birth to this fatherless child of sin." As she spoke, she crazily flung off her clothes and ran upside down towards the foot of the mountain. Damn! Hua Wen hurriedly chased after her, only to find that Hua Wu, running upside down, was faster than her running normally, and she couldn't catch up for a moment. In Yusher Town, the bustling scene suddenly dissipated, leaving only some of the demon slayer heroes, who couldn't run anymore or were injured. The main troops had long run away. The excitement was over. Old demon Duan had gone mad, killing Red House, Thunder God and Mother Sect, and even the terrifying peacock demon. If you don't run now, are you waiting to be killed by old demon Duan? If old demon Duan were weak, they would naturally be the righteous people who gang up on the old demon, but now that old demon Duan is very strong, they are naturally the spectators who run away after watching the excitement. Old Gua from Du Society was the last to return. For a glimpse of old demon Duan's prowess, it wasn't easy for him. Both of his legs were broken. He was carried up the mountain by hired people, but once everyone ran away, those hired abandoned him and fled. Old Gua felt that he had rolled down half of the mountain path and even got stepped on a few times along the way. The Jianghu people had too much strength in their feet. It almost cost him half his life. But old Gua felt it was worth it, because he really saw old demon Duan. Old demon Duan was fighting against numerous rivals alone at the top of the graveyard, with sword chi and sword chi flying around, causing the bamboo and bones on the graveyard to fly around as well. Although he only saw the opponent's silhouette, he still saw old demon Duan's demonically grand demeanor. Too powerful, terrifying to such an extent. Thinking that old demon Duan had always been in this area, and he had been telling stories about old demon Duan in this area, perhaps old demon Duan had even heard him tell stories about old demon Duan. Thinking of this, old Gua got excited involuntarily. This was simply the glory of a storyteller. For a moment, the pain in his body seemed to lessen significantly. Suddenly, a figure rushed in from outside. Old Gua's eyes were wide. It was a woman, completely naked, her face a bit square, running upside down on her hands at a high speed. Naked woman, upside down, sprinting wildly on the street. These few terms put together amounted to novelty, allure, and were brimming with tension. If he talked about this, the tips were likely to increase significantly. But this scene had actually happened. Thinking that this woman also came from the graveyard meant she must definitely be old demon Duan's doing. Exactly how many terrifying methods did old demon Duan have to make a woman run naked upside down like this? The next moment, another woman, nearly identical to the upside-down woman, chased after her, also at great speed. Hua Wu running naked upside down attracted a lot of people, becoming another topic of interest after the big event of old demon Duan wreaking havoc, almost like an afterglow following a high climax. Ahead, Hua Wu had rushed out of the town, towards the lakeside. At this time, she suddenly stopped running, and Hua Wen hurriedly caught up. "Sister, I've realized it. I've truly realized it." The next moment, Hua Wu upside down. Jade sword True Chi burst forth from behind her, forming a Dharma image. This was the embrace sparrow tail that the two sisters had never managed to master. Hua Wu had actually mastered it, but Hua Wen looked at the Jade sword immortal Dharma image, which was actually in the likeness of old demon Duan, and was so frightened she couldn't speak. Sister, I've realized it. I've realized it. I want to give birth to Peacock's cursed offspring, to continue spreading old demon Duan's cultivation techniques, making more people become like us. Just like us. Chapter 91. Murong brothers, I want to practice swordsmanship too. Hua Wu was standing on her head, the Dharma image of old demon Duan, and her frantic voice wafting around, quite terrifying. Sister, why? Hua Wen said, shivering with fear. Sister, don't you understand yet? Hua Wen stood on her head, laughing crazily, tears falling down. The next moment, Hua Wen, who had felt afraid, involuntarily started to stand on her head as well, seemingly infected by madness, and began to laugh out loud. Sister, you're right. You're right. There are many who suffer like us. Better to become women who are violated. Then we won't have to endure such pain. Why should we alone bear this terrible pain? We must spread it far and wide. Let the martial world feel the pain. Not just spread it. We shall also revere old demon Duan as our honor. Regard him as our god. Yes, look how powerful he is. For a time, behind Hua Wen and Hua Wu, the Dharma image of old demon Duan emerged, countless arms wielding swords and knives unfurling like a peacock's tail, full of heroic spirit. Duan Yun returned to Yuzhu Villa. Inside the villa, the Murong brothers were still lying lazily on the mat, refusing to move a muscle. A spider as big as a Tangyuan crawled over the back of one's neck, even biting him there, but he did not react. Duan Yun exclaimed, "Aren't you afraid of being poisoned?" The Murong brother replied, "This thing is not poisonous." "How do you know?" "I've been bitten by it several times already." "It has bitten you multiple times, and you don't kill it?" "I'm too lazy to bother. Besides, can't you kill it for me?" Duan Yun shook his head. "I refuse." In the kitchen, smoke curled up from the stove. Shining was busy stir-frying, her movements quick and adept. Everything remained as if nothing had happened, as if it was all normal. Duan Yun couldn't help saying, "Don't you have any questions for me?" Indeed, earlier at the top of the graveyard, Duan Yun was able to suddenly slay the peacock demon thanks to their help. Entering the bamboo forest, he heard the distinct starting sound of the 12 layers of spring rain saber technique and knew the Murong brothers had come. Thus, he began his counterattack. The strangely violent bricks that followed were naturally thrown by Shining. The peacock demon, losing the chance to flee, was solidly struck with their spring rain sword chi. Without Shining blocking the way, the peacock demon would not have been hit so solidly. The Murong brothers' answer was very typical of him. "If you don't say it yourself, I can't be bothered to ask." Shining brought out a dish and said, "You did save my life after all. Do I need to ask anything for helping you in return? Aren't you afraid that I really am old demon Duan?" Duan Yun said. Shining sat down and laughed. When others laugh, it generally starts with their mouth. But Shinying's laugh began with her nose. Her nose crinkled slightly first, like ripples on the surface of a lake, followed by 2 shallow dimples appearing on her cheeks, which was quite attractive. "You are old demon Duan," Shining said. "I." No need to explain. A person with the same name and surname as old demon Duan, who looks as handsome and has a gray donkey, who is skilled in swordsmanship. When we talk about how perverted old demon Duan is, you always unintentionally sing a different tune, and when we laugh at old demon Duan, you don't. We aren't blind. If you're not old demon Duan, who is? Shining stated. "Then aren't you afraid of me?" Duan Yun asked. Even though he was filled with heroic spirit, the outside world really portrayed him too cruelly. The Murong brother, still lying there, replied, "Why would I be afraid of you? Are you going to turn me into a woman? I'd welcome that. You learned your swordsmanship from me. I could even claim to be your master. Afraid of you? That would be turning the heavenly gang upside down. Then if you know I am old demon Duan, why would you still help me?" Duan Yun asked. "Because we are friends," Shining said. The Murong brother nodded in agreement. A simple sentence, that was the conclusion. We've discussed before just how many false accusations old demon Duan has been saddled with. Looking at it now, there seems to be even more than we talked about that day. No wonder you were so gloomy then, said Shining. The Morong brothers also sighed. If we set aside those false accusations, you are someone who dares to kill disciples of the Thunder God and Mother sect, kill the Red Building Fairy, kill demons, and kill the Peacock Demon. These people were not good to begin with, and while others were afraid to take them down, you had the guts to do so. That makes you a hero. If others think of you as an old demon, it's because they have misunderstood you due to those false accusations. As friends, we naturally cannot misunderstand you. Hearing this, old demon Duan himself was about to burst into tears. Tears of being moved. Maybe you are seen by many as a demon beyond redemption, slandered and misunderstood. But sometimes, it's enough to be a hero in the eyes of just one or two people. Just like how he had killed many, but that experience of performing an emergency C-section could still warm his heart. But at this point, Shen Ying's tone shifted and she said, "The other night, you said I spoke carelessly and could end up both violated and murdered by old demon Duan. You are old demon Duan, but while killing me is unlikely, you have definitely considered the other thing." Duan Yun's face changed, and he hurriedly denied, "I didn't." Shining spoke with righteous indignation. "Dare to think it but not admit it. And let me tell you, even thinking is wrong, it's a mistake too. Duan Yun, how come there are so many shadow women in the world?" At this time, the Morong brothers also changed the subject. "Actually, I'm somewhat disappointed that you are not that notorious old demon Duan." Because that means you can't turn me into a woman." Duan Yun, still not giving up, the Morong brothers asked, "Really? You can't do it?" Duan Yun shook his head. "I really can't." "Ah, you're no good," said the Morong brothers, disappointed. Men fear most being told they can't do something, and Duan Yun was no exception. Thus, he retorted, "And you can do it? Your 7 layers of spring rain, at best, only has the power of 6 layers. The Morong brothers' faces flushed as they defended themselves. "That's because I don't have a proper blade." Then Duan Yun suddenly thought of something, pondering. "I've been blamed for so many things, but the accusation of gender transformation was the first to spread, and also the one that confuses me the most." Shen Ying said in confusion. "Why?" "Because those who spread the news of the gender transformations were exactly the ones I've passed similar cultivation techniques to, and I didn't teach these techniques to many. Out of 4, 3 have had such rumors about them without any word of their defense. Unless they really encountered trouble, they should have at least tried to defend themselves. I'm thinking, I need to find them and confirm the truth, to see if someone else is behind this. Yes, as young hero Duan, he is now a target of the dark forces, which are capable of using all kinds of despicable means." Shining analyzed, "If someone really did this intentionally, you probably won't be able to find them anymore. In the martial world, when expected news does not appear, and instead rumors do, it's highly likely that those who knew the truth had met with misfortune." At this point, the Morong brothers suddenly said, "Was the cultivation technique you passed to them all the same?" Duan Yun nodded. "It's my cultivation technique for nourishing yin and strengthening yang with swordsmanship." The Morong brothers then said, "Then you don't need to find them first. Pass it on to me, and if I also turn into a woman, then it's definitely because of you. If nothing happens to me, probably it's another false accusation." Duan Yun raised an eyebrow. "You really want to try?" "Of course. I'm not thinking about the chance of becoming a woman, but I'm too lazy to bother learning any swordsmanship," Morong insisted earnestly. Duan Yun nodded. "All right then, stand up. I'll pass it on to you now." The Morong brothers were lazily sprawled out and said, "You demonstrate it first. I can learn it lying down." "This isn't how it works. You can't be this lazy. It's related to stance skills," Duan Yun said despondently. The Morong brothers remained unmoved, just watching. Duan Yun casually tossed some colorful hidden weapons onto his body. "What are you doing?" asked the Morong brothers, puzzled. "These are Peacock's hidden weapons." The Morong brothers suddenly realized and exclaimed, "That one shot from his crotch? Where else could it come from? Ah, no wonder it smelled so strong." The Morong brothers, who usually wouldn't budge even if bitten by a spider, quickly shook the hidden weapons off his body onto the floor. At this moment, Duan Yun again had new hidden weapons in his hand and said, "This time I'm aiming for your face and mouth." "Damn! I'll get up. I'll get up. Old demon Duan, you're too perverted," muttered the Morong brothers as they scrambled to their feet. Duan Yun then struck the jade sword stance and said, "Come on, follow along." Then, he looked at Shining. "Shadowing, are you joining us too?" Shining quickly shook her head. "I'm not learning." Even though she knew that Duan Yun was not that notorious old demon Duan, she instinctively felt that there was something off about this cultivation technique. In the room, the usually lazy Morong brothers stood up and assumed the stance for stance skills. It was one of those rare moments of diligence for the Morong brothers, and they could only hope for a good outcome. Chapter 92. Old Demon Duan, I hate you. That night, Lai Zhou and the Morong brothers practiced under the moonlight. It was unexpectedly difficult for the Morong brothers, this one in 10,000 sword talent, to get the hang of it, and for a while they couldn't grasp the fundamentals. Lai Zhou couldn't help but mock. "Can you even do it? I'm practically holding your hand through this, and you're still the worst student I've ever had." The Morong brothers' faces reddened as they explained, "I've been devoted to the blade my whole life. Switching to the sword now is naturally met with resistance." They couldn't understand why it was so difficult to absorb the moonlight. First off, they could definitely sense the nature's spiritual energy, as Lai Zhou mentioned. With breathing practices at a certain level, you would absorb nature's energy and turn it into true qi. This was a natural process. But they couldn't sense the moonlight. Smooth and moist, too abstract for them to perceive. Disappointed in his disciple, Lai Zhou went to sleep, leaving the Morong brothers alone under the moonlight to practice their stance and seek enlightenment. It had been so long since they had trained so diligently. Especially this stance practice, something they had done for a time during childhood. Being a child was great, carefree, only aware of being the young master of the Morong family, a 1 in 10,000 sword prodigy, with a devoted father and loving parents, and not so many half-sisters. But everything had changed. Oh, how it had changed. Thinking back on the deep affections of the past, yet coming from his own sisters, pain clutched at his heart. It hurt so much he could hardly breathe. He had to turn into a woman. The Morong brothers continued to ponder deeply and feel for the moonlight. What exactly was moonlight? Moonlight was naturally the light of the moon. Lai Zhou absorbed it to master formidable swordsmanship, so why couldn't they? They needed to think more concretely. Starting with the moon itself. The Morong brothers always remembered a story about the moon. When they were 9, an emissary from the Wangxian sect visited Lai Zhou and made quite an impression. Normally, established powers had taken root in Lai Zhou, and it was difficult for an outsider sect to gain a foothold, but the Wangxian sect did just that. Many in Lai Zhou were believers at that time, including some notable figures. The sect hierarch, Wang Yu, often made shocking statements that drew crowds. What stuck with the Morong brothers the most was his claim that the ground people stood on was a huge sphere, like the sun and moon, revolving around this large ball that was the world, and that the moon had no light of its own, but rather was illuminated by the sun's rays. Such nonsense! If the ground was a huge sphere, wouldn't they constantly need to stick to it to stand? Even at 9 years old, the Morong brothers found it laughable. Eventually, the Wangxian sect fell out of favor with the major powers. Sect hierarch Wang Yu was brutally beaten to death by the young heavenly prides of several factions. His death was terrible to behold, and the Wangxian sect became nothing more than a passing cloud. Knowing this to be sheer nonsense, blithering drivel, the Morong brothers still remembered it after all these years. And at this moment, they considered moonlight to be a reflection of sunlight. Sunlight was warm and blazing, while moonlight was not. All because the moon was a great sphere that absorbed and emitted light. Sunlight fell upon it, and with the moon's swallow and breath, the warm, blazing sunlight cooled down and became moonlight. Once the Morong brothers thought this way, suddenly, they could sense the moonlight. Holy shit! Just thinking that they had finally made progress, and might even transform into a woman, they were overcome with such excitement they wanted to somersault endlessly. But they couldn't somersault now. They needed to seize the moment to absorb moonlight, absorb it fiercely, absorb it desperately, until the moon completely disappeared behind the clouds and showed no sign of re-emerging. The Morong brothers reluctantly returned to their humble straw mat. It had been a long time since they had felt such diligent and fervent longing, looking forward to the change. In the morning, the Morong brothers woke up and felt themselves, both above and below, noticing no changes. Struggling, they got up and went to find Lai Zhou, complaining that despite having absorbed moonlight, there was little effect. Lai Zhou retorted, "I, a 1 in 10,000 cultivation prodigy, didn't succeed in just one day and night. How could you expect major effects so quickly? Keep absorbing fiercely." The Morong brothers thought this made sense. Lai Zhou's talent was just a tiny bit better than theirs, so it was only natural for them to be slightly slower. Damn it, isn't Kung Fu something you grind out step by step? Even a genius like them needed to put in day after day of effort. For instance, when practicing the 12 layers of spring rain, it didn't produce results in just one day. It could only be blamed on their eagerness to progress. So, under the night sky, Duan Yun and Shining were eating barbecue and sipping on liquor, witnessing the birth of the most diligent Morong brother. That guy, in his eagerness to absorb moonlight, even gave up on his favorite drink. After dinner, Duan Yun was inspired by him and also started doing his stance work to absorb. Shining looked on speechlessly, feeling that these two were just boring, and went back to her room to sleep. This time, they trained until the moon was covered by clouds before Morong brother finally went back to sleep. Lying on that familiar straw mat, Morong brother was close to crying from being so moved. He had worked so hard to become a woman. In the early morning, Morong brother got up, felt here and there, and was shocked. There was a change. But, in the early morning, by the backyard water tank, Duan Yun was taking a cold shower, and Morong brother also came over. The two exchanged glances and showered together in the cool autumn with the chilly water. Duan Yun glanced at his brother and said in surprise, "It seems that you did well last night. The effect is good." Morong brother, drenching himself with cold water, grumbled, "Is this the cultivation technique you said would turn a man fallen?" Duan Yun let out a relieved breath and said, "I told you it's for nourishing yin and strengthening yang. How could it be for falling? Seems like my cultivation technique has no issues. How could my cultivation technique have a problem? Indeed, someone must be out to get me." Duan Yun looked relieved and happy, whereas Morong brother was like a mourning widow. All this effort, just to become a woman, to hell with nourishing yin and strengthening yang. Seeing Duan Yun walking away yet the vigor hadn't subsided, Morong couldn't help but ask, "How much longer do I have to keep this up?" "Until it completely calms down," answered Duan Yun without turning his head. From early morning until after lunch, it wasn't until then that Duan Yun saw Morong brother again, only to see him glaring resentfully, like a little wife who had been wronged. "What's the matter?" Duan Yun couldn't help asking. "I've been showering for almost 2.5 hours, 3 tanks of water. It's numb down there, but still not calm," said Morong brother. Duan Yun was surprised. Really? He thought Morong brother had gone to sleep by now, but Morong brother walked hunched over, wearing his loosest pants, but even this posture was still unfamiliar. "How much longer do I need?" asked Morong brother. Duan Yun shook his head. "I don't know. I usually get it done in half an hour at most." "Darn. You actually have a talent that surpasses mine." In the middle of the night, Morong brother lay there, his head along with his brother pointed towards the ceiling, questioning his life. A whole day, and it still wouldn't go down. The next day, Morong brother lay there all day long, turning into a lazybones. On the third evening, Morong brother found Duan Yun, grabbed his hand, and said, "You have to help me." Duan Yun raised an eyebrow. "Help you with what?" 3 days now, 3 days. I've used cold water, slapped, even hit it and even let some blood out, but it's still the same." At this point, Morong brother was close to tears. That thing was standing firm all the time, and even sleeping and peeing were uncomfortable. "Okay? It even started to hurt a little because it had been upright for so long. Duan-yun was shocked, took a sharp breath and said, "Terrifying indeed." He was astonished at how effective his own cultivation technique was on Murong brother, and also at Murong brother's methods towards his brother. Bloodletting was even tried. He couldn't help but comfort. "Actually, this is pretty good. When your sisters see how imposing you are, they probably won't dare to mess with you." "Your sister," Murong brother said painfully. Duan-yun pretended to ponder, then said, "If it keeps up, you probably have to change your name." "What name?" Before practicing this technique, he had thought of a name for when he became a woman, Murong Jime. But now it was completely useless, moving further and further away from that name. "Murong Xiangtian," said Duan-yun. Hearing this, Murong brother got so angry that he almost passed out. At this moment, Duan-yun gave his final advice, saying, "If it really doesn't work, just cut it off." Murong brother clutched his chest, almost spitting out a mouthful of old blood, and yelled, "Old demon Duan, I hate you." Chapter 93. Sister. He's here. Murong felt a glimmer of hope on the 7th day, as Wentian's condition slightly improved. He felt as if he was left with only half a life. He had never found the act of facing heaven to be so troublesome and painful. Even sleeping on a straw mat became unbearable. On the 6th day, he even considered Duan-yun's suggestion. Cut it off. But he detested eunuchs. Upon hearing of his improvement, Duan-yun suggested, "You've been facing heaven for so long, it must be because your practice is too shallow. You haven't settled it in. Look at me, I would not take that long. In my opinion, you should continue to practice, and practice more will do." Murong clenched his teeth and said, "Get lost." Murong nearly cried when he saw the possibility of returning to normal. He couldn't help but feel that even without becoming a woman, just to be a normal man who doesn't constantly face heaven was a kind of happiness. Happiness is indeed relative, even when the comparison is with oneself. And during these days, Yusher Town and Graveyard had also undergone significant changes. The battle at Old Demon Duan's graveyard earned him a notorious name, causing those who spoke of him to pale. Even the bloodthirsty storyteller from Diyu Society took a few days off, whether they were organizing material or too scared to continue. After that battle, as the heroes of the martial world who came to slay demons withdrew, Graveyard and Yusher Town seemed to return to their former tranquility. But since the day before yesterday, whether it was Yusher Town or Graveyard, they gradually became lively again, due to people from martial world coming to observe the remnants of the battle. Thus, there were daily visitors to Yusher Town, and even Graveyard, which normally saw few visitors, had people arriving daily to witness the traces left by Old Demon Duan's fierce battle. Some say that insights into superior kung fu could be gained even from the traces left by a master's duel. Others say that feeling the aura of the battle and understanding its terror could be beneficial for their own progress. Of course, most people just came to join in on the excitement to have stories to boast about later. The biggest trend in martial world isn't just following the crowd or joining in the excitement, but also adding one's support. Thus, the once gloomy and terrifying Graveyard suddenly trended as a popular attraction. Yesterday and this morning, Duan-yun and the others were even woken up by the noise of the crowd on the Graveyard. At this moment, sitting in the courtyard basking in the sun, they couldn't help but complain about this matter. "I was hiding from assassins at Yuju Villa, and now with this bustle outside, isn't it easy for my whereabouts to be exposed?" Murong complained. Shining quipped, "You being chased by sisters is what you deserve. What difference does it make if it's sooner or later? The key point is, today I went to Old Chen's to buy roast meat, and it was sold out too early. I even worry that Old Chen might raise the prices." Duan-yun couldn't help saying, "That does sound like a more serious problem." Murong being chased by sisters could at most mean being adorned with flowers on his corpse, but not being able to eat roast meat. Wouldn't that make life pointless? Soon after, the two saw Murong's deathly distraught eyes, and Duan-yun comforted him. "Don't worry. If you practice dual masters of sword and saber like me, catching your sisters shouldn't be a problem. Morong's eyes widened. He said, "More sword practice? Are you trying to get me killed?" Duan Yun said, "You don't have to, but since we are friends, I can help you catch your sisters. By the way, besides that flower fanatic, what other features do your other sisters have? I need to be prepared." Hearing the word sisters, Morong felt a heart-wrenching pain. Sisters and sister are only one word apart but worlds apart, causing unbearable heartache. At this point, Shuning frowned. "Why do you always get excited when capturing women is mentioned?" Duan Yun said, "Do I?" Shuning, with a disdainful look, said, "Yes, pervert." Duan Yun responded, "But I didn't do anything. Even thinking about it is wrong. It's perverted to think it." Hearing this, it reminded Duan Yun of an old acquaintance. He had considered before that to clear his name and restore the rightful reputation of Duan Yun. The goddess catcher sisters would be a crucial element. In the past few days, first, the battle at the graveyard kept him extremely busy, and then he was teaching Morong brothers the swordsmanship, almost forgetting this matter. He didn't know whether the sisters had left the area around Wangchun City or not. "No, I have to go out," Duan Yun said and walked outside. Shuning showed a puzzled expression and said, "Why is he in such a rush? What is he going to do?" The Morong brothers instantly got excited and said, "A new sister! It must be a new sister." Shuning was tired of hearing this line. But this time, the Morong brothers insisted, "This time it must be a new sister. I have a strong premonition. Don't believe it? Sneak after him and see." "Sneak after him? I'm not a pervert." Shuning spoke and directly left. She practiced some punches in the yard, breaking a piece of foxtail into thousands of pieces, then noticed that the Morong brothers had gone quiet, probably gone to sleep again, so she sneaked out of the door. "I'm just wandering around. Definitely not secretly following that guy." This was Duan Yun's first visit to Yushir town after the graveyard battle. It is fair to say that the place indeed had more people, although not as crowded as during the demon-slaying conference, but still quite a number, almost catching up with the bustling small spring town. Duan Yun suddenly remembered something. After arriving in Wangchun City, he had always been engaged in the ventures of a young hero, but neglected his old profession as a gynecologist. The feeling of healing and saving people was good. Originally planning to pursue primary and secondary careers simultaneously, he should not let the gynecologist work be neglected. Previously, he had found some valuable items while handling corpses, especially the agate hairpin from the Red House madwoman, which Shuning had sold for a decent amount of money. Now he could certainly afford to rent a small shop and open a small clinic, making the name of old Mr. Duan known as well. Medical practitioner's compassionate heart, and acting heroically for a just cause. None should be missing. However, today's main focus was still to find the goddess catcher. So Duan Yun directly went to Wangchun City. For Duan Yun, Wangchun City was like a giant kiln, where the service was good and anything desired could be bought. Except for being expensive, it seemed to have few drawbacks. Now, buying information about the goddess catcher was not difficult. Even the storyteller knew that the goddess catcher had arrived, so it would be simple for those in the city who specifically dealt with such matters, known as Scroll Gate. As long as it was within the limits of Wangchun City, they could quickly gather information. After all, the goddess catchers were beautiful twin sisters who acted openly and honorably, not mysteriously appearing and disappearing like old demon Duan, making them much easier to find. Lung Yiming and Lung Yishue were indeed inside Wangchun City. Lung Yiming could even confirm that old demon Duan was still in the area around Yushir town, as she could smell his scent when she used all her strength. The graveyard battle had seen the massacre of the people of the Red House and the Thunder God and Mother sect. Even the infamous Peacock Demon had been killed. Old demon Duan, stepping over these corpses, had gained an even more terrifying demon name, yet he had not left. What was he planning to do? Lang Yiming suddenly thought of that cellar, thought of the finger, and felt frightened, so she retreated into Wangchun City. There was no scent of old demon Duan here, giving them some relief. The sisters could confirm that old demon Duan could not be restrained anytime soon. Even if all the top experts from the Qingqi Bureau were brought in, it probably wouldn't help. too ferocious. They could only watch and wait, fearing that old demon Duan might cause even more horrifying trouble, wreaking havoc in the martial world. It was then that Lang Yiming suddenly turned pale and said with a trembling voice, "Sister, he's here." Chapter 94. Trouble. Old demon Duan planted a demon seed in me. Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue were originally drinking tea in a tea house in this alley. They were pondering whether to have more people from the Qingqi Bureau join them in escorting, or to directly defy the orders and leave. Lately, for some unknown reason, the authorities above have gone mad, even considering confronting old demon Duan. Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue also understood the intentions of their superior. A woman seeking a promotion naturally needs to achieve some deeds. Old demon Duan has been the most prominent new demon recently, so using him as an achievement would naturally yield the best effect. But what people fear most is the lack of self-awareness. The ferocity of old demon Duan far exceeds imagination. The battle at the graveyard terrified them. Thus, the two women decided that if that old woman truly wished to establish her achievements, she should go forth herself. Although they were righteous and kind-hearted, often contending and interacting with evil, this did not mean they would foolishly sacrifice themselves needlessly. They couldn't subdue old demon Duan. Yes, they were the ones to be subdued. At this moment, Lang Yiming suddenly began to shiver slightly. She had once spent a long time in Duan Yun's old house in Lishui City, smelling old demon Duan's personal belongings, and became extremely familiar with his scent. And now, she smelled old demon Duan's scent. "Sister, he's here," Lang Yiming said with a pale face. "Don't panic, let's leave first." Lang Yishue tried to be calmer but not by much. Lang Yiming quickly stood up, trying to distance herself from that scent. They walked quickly, but what frightened them was the scent persisted. It was as if old demon Duan was nearby, coldly watching them, coldly tailing them. The weather was a bit gloomy, and although this street in Wangchun City was the quietest with people coming and going, for a moment, Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue, two courage-filled goddess catchers, felt as if they were in the midst of utmost terror, like sinister ghosts. Lang Yiming stealthily looked back, scanning the surroundings, but still, there was no sign of old demon Duan. Her sister Lang Yishue whispered, "Don't look back. Keep moving forward. Go to Mo Tower." Mo Tower is where the revered figures of Mo sect are located, and Wangchun City is Mo sect's territory. The Mo sect managed the city because they have a profound relationship with the court. Not even old demon Duan would dare to target them near Mo Tower. But they were still a distance away from Mo Tower, and yet the scent lingered. Lang Yiming involuntarily grabbed her sister Lang Yishue, quickening their pace, but suddenly, at the corner of the street, a figure dashed in. To the officials, "It's been a long..." "Ah!" Before Duan Yun could finish speaking, Lang Yiming's scream abruptly rose, startling him. At this moment, Lang Yiming looked extremely sensitive, as if she might fly away at a touch, and the moment she saw Duan Yun's handsome face, she immediately shielded her sister behind her, screaming, "Come at me if you want anything. Spare my sister. No matter how you deal with me, play with me, or lock me in a cellar and handle me, it's all fine." For a moment, she blurted out her innermost feelings, both what should and shouldn't be said. "Duan Yun, I merely greeted them." Although there weren't many people in this alley, Lang Yiming's shocking words immediately drew the attention of many bystanders. This sisterly talk of cellar tortures and playfulness sounded rather thrilling. At this moment, Lang Yishue stepped forward to protect Lang Yiming, saying, "Spare my sister. Come at me with anything you've got. You can do whatever you want with me, as long as you let my sister go." "Duan Yun, how bad do you think I am, to assume I would do such things to you?" "Officials, I was just saying hello," Duan Yun said with clear eyes. The clearer his eyes were, the more on guard the two women became. Because it was widely rumored in the martial world that old demon Duan had a handsome face and a pair of clear eyes. The clearer his eyes were, the closer was your doom. Lang Yiming suddenly remembered the storyteller's old demon's survival method, which said that one must go along with what he says, treating him as a real young hero, to have a chance of survival. because old demon Duan had a strange fondness for playing the role of a young hero. Reflecting on their past encounters, they realized it was indeed so. When they first met him, he was pretentiously playing a greenhorn adventurer. It seemed his peculiar habit had grown more severe. Lung Yiming forced calm and said, "So it's young hero Duan. Long time no see." Hearing the title Young Hero, Duan Yun's tone immediately became much more relaxed, saying, "It has been a long time, indeed. It's really not easy to come across an acquaintance. In front is a tea house. I invite the two officials to have tea." Lung Yiming and Lung Yishue had no choice but to follow with trepidation. In the tea house, a steaming pot of bamboo green tea served with a dish of crispy peanuts looked very appetizing. Duan Yun poured tea for the sisters, who received it with sincere fear and trepidation. At that moment, Duan Yun suddenly asked, "You didn't just mistake me for old demon Duan, did you?" Upon hearing this, the two sisters simultaneously tightened their legs, sealing them shut firmly. "Why would we think that?" Lung Yishue said with forced composure. Had she not controlled her arms with her true qi, half of the tea in her cup would have probably spilled onto her face. Duan Yun spoke seriously. "Actually, I understand your thoughts, but I have a favor to ask of you both." With her eyes reddening, Leng Yiming said, "I will obediently do whatever you ask of me, but as an agent of the Qingqi Bureau, there are some things against heaven and reason I will not do." This was her bottom line as goddess catcher. Even if she was captured and tortured and killed by this demon, she would never do anything against heaven and reason. Duan Yun. For a moment, he realized the world's misunderstanding of him was so profound, even coming from a goddess catcher who was almost an acquaintance. "I killed Peacock. The murders of the Thunder God and Mother Sect and the people from Red House are my doing, but they were all evildoers. One was even a bona fide old demon. I was enacting vigilante justice," Duan Yun explained. Lung Yishue quickly responded, "Young hero Duan is indeed a paragon of chivalry and heroism, which my sister and I admire. Let us toast you with tea in lieu of wine." The two sisters hurriedly raised their cups to drink, their actions perfectly in sync. Even the quiver of their bosoms as they put their cups down seemed identical. Duan Yun noticed their apprehensions and guessed they did not believe him, but he still earnestly explained, "I killed the county magistrate of Lishui because I checked the accounts. He colluded with the Xuanxiong gang, extorting protection money. I killed the followers of Thunder God and Mother Sect because while I was dining, a lunatic panicked after hearing thunder and suddenly tried to test his cultivation technique on my life. The fairy from Red House who you are pursuing, I was the real victim. At the Liu mansion, it was the Red Building women who first tortured and killed the Liu family members. I merely stepped in out of righteousness. It wasn't about forcefully separating a pair of lovers at all. Think about it. Could a Red Building lady and a gentleman from the Liu family ever make a pair of lovebirds?" Upon hearing this, Lung Yiming and Lung Yishue fell silent. If it was just one side of the story from old demon Duan, it seemed plausible, but "I know what you want to say. Regarding the matter of the fallen, it truly wasn't my doing. I am friends with the Lingshui twin heroes. I only taught them swordsmanship. How could I possibly harm them? Mr. Liu was injured and I shared with him a stance technique to help recover, but I don't know who's trying to frame me by twisting facts." Duan Yun stated his case. "It was divine Dr. Xue from the Jiangzhong sect who said that," Lung Yiming said, trembling with fear. "That old man speaks nothing but nonsense," Duan Yun angrily said. His anger scared the sisters, their hands instinctively finding each other's under the table. Indeed, if this matter was spoken by someone else, it might be doubtful, but divine Dr. Xue's words held too much credibility. For so many years, everything that divine Dr. Xue, the big mouth, said turned out to be true. Not once was there a falsehood. To believe him or old demon Duan, the answer was obvious. I, Duan Yun, am upright and would never fear a crooked shadow. I must confront that old man Xue face to face. If Hua Wen and Hua Wu can be found, then even better. That's why I am asking for both your assistance," Duan Yun said with heartfelt sincerity. The sisters, however, suspected he might want to silence someone with a killing. Summing up her courage, Lang Yiming said, "We've looked for Hua Wen and Hua Wu with no leads. As for divine Dr. Shui, we could give it a try. First, let me be your hostage, release my sister, and let her go search. During this period, no matter how you treat me, I will obey," she said. Lang Yiming, in her resolve to save her sister, was willing to fall into the claws of a demon. Duan Yun showed an expression like that of an old grandfather at a subway station and said, "Beauty, can you not imagine things out of nowhere? Hostage, how did we get to talking about hostages? I am asking you two for a favor, to help me find someone, to help me achieve justice. Once this matter is settled, I shall repay you generously." At the word, generously, Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue instinctively felt that it was something they couldn't handle. How could they accept the generosity of old demon Duan? After finishing his words, Duan Yun departed. Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue didn't even have time to react. Do I really not need to be a hostage, to be locked in a cellar, to be tortured with those formidable fingers? Lang Yiming exclaimed in surprise. Seeing that Duan Yun had indeed left, she momentarily felt an odd sense of loss. She had been well prepared. How could I entertain such an absurd thought? Oh no! Old demon Duan has planted a demon seed within me. After some time, Lang Yiming confirmed that there was no odd sensation, meaning that old demon Duan hadn't done anything to her. So her feeling of loss earlier was very strange. It can't be that I have awakened some peculiar fetish. No, it must be old demon Duan influencing me secretly. I, Lang Yiming, am as pure as ice and as noble as jade. How could I have an odd fetish? As Lang Yiming was caught in her own doubts and fears, Duan Yun had taken the two human charms he won as spoils of war to the city's Great Forge. The Great Forge was a shop, the largest weapon shop in the city, without rivalry. Behind the shop stood a massive forge over 15 meters tall, imposing and oppressive in appearance. If one wanted to buy any weapon or cast any weaponry, there was no doubt this was the best place. Just like any other business in Wangchun City, apart from being expensive, there was nothing else to criticize. Duan Yun planned to forge a sword from these spoils of war. The ordinary iron sword, just like Lady Miao who had aged and lost her charm, could no longer keep up with his increasing skills. He needed a new sword to better become the dual master of sword and saber. Chapter 95. Is the curse of the demon blade acting up? After Duan Yun left, Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue were still sitting in the tea house, visibly unsettled. On the table was the tea personally poured by old demon Duan. No matter what, the current old demon Duan was a significant figure they could only look up to. Yet his manner was exceedingly polite, so polite it was frightening. Lang Yiming voiced her doubts. He didn't capture and imprison us. Has old demon Duan gone mad? Lang Yishue shook her head. I don't know. One shouldn't bother guessing old demon Duan's thoughts. Sis, what do we do now? Are we really going to help him find Dr. Shui? Lang Yiming asked, perplexed. It was unexpected for her not to have been captured by old demon Duan. Lang Yishue fell silent. Do you really want to help him? Lang Yiming asked with surprise. Lang Yishue bit her lip and said, I just want to know the truth. Do you think what he said is credible? Would Dr. Shui lie? What do you think? You believe what the old demon says. Could it be that you have feelings for him? What about you? I. After that, both sisters fell silent. Having a deep connection from a young age, they naturally understood each other's thoughts. They were actually willing to believe Duan Yun once, even though he is now the infamous demon. The reason was that inexplicable fondness, or rather, Duan Yun had a mysterious allure to them. The tale of the demon and the goddess catcher was once a much-discussed topic in the martial world. It was the shame of the Qingqi Bureau and the nightmare of the goddess catchers, yet in fact, some goddess catchers developed affection from hatred, ending up falling for the demon. There was more than one such goddess catcher. Some of the predecessors who were rescued spoke the demon's name until their last breath. This was an eerie matter, but it kept happening. Between goddess catchers and the demon, there seemed to be a peculiar natural attraction. Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue were not to that extent, but perhaps because Duan Yun could easily capture them yet he let them go, or maybe it was this strange attraction, it made them willing to believe old demon Duan this time. As the two goddess catchers were caught in their conflicted emotions, a woman at the next table stood up and left. Inside the great forge, a sweet-looking woman greeted Duan Yun. This woman was sweet-looking and her smile was sweet. If she wished to sell you something, it wouldn't be easy to refuse. Seeing her sweet smile, Duan Yun became somewhat wary, which often meant silver slipping out of one's pocket. Wangchun City was just like that, like a forever insatiable young wife, able to effortlessly drain one's savings. Young hero, are you looking to buy a type of weapon? Duan Yun shook his head. Not to buy, but to custom make one. I see, a custom order. Duan Yun took out the 2 life tokens and said, using these to make it. The moment she saw the 2 life tokens, the sweetness in the woman's eyes was replaced by a much more serious look. Young hero, please follow me. Duan Yun was invited into an elegant private room upstairs. In the private room, the air was filled with the scent of sandalwood, and the table was set with clear tea and exquisite pastries. Such treatment indeed made him feel the value of the 2 metal stakes. Before long, a man dressed in blue entered the room. The man had a little mustache and looked very shrewd. Upon seeing Duan Yun, he carefully examined the stakes and cut to the chase. Young hero, this is high-quality Xianlei iron, and the mechanism inside is extremely intricate. It must be the work of a master craftsman. Are you really planning to melt them down for sword casting? To the man, this seemed almost like a waste of good material. Likewise, he knew that these things were problematic. They were clearly possessions of someone, and whoever was robbed of them was definitely not an ordinary individual. If these things are not melted and recast, the young hero standing in front of him will likely encounter plenty of trouble. Duan Yun nodded. I'm not used to these 2 items. I prefer swords. What requirements do you have for the sword, young hero? Naturally, it should be practical, durable, and if possible, also good-looking and enduring. For so long, Duan Yun had been using an entry-level iron sword, and now he could finally ask for something handsome. The man in blue nodded. Understood. All the swordsmiths at my great furnace are masters from the Mo sect, and they will surely meet young hero's requirements. As for the size of the sword, do you have any specifications in mind? After Duan Yun stated his requirements, the man in blue nodded. A deposit of 300 taels. How much? Duan Yun raised his brow. He had anticipated that casting a sword wouldn't be cheap, especially at a place like the Great Furnace, but he hadn't expected it would be so expensive. The key point was, this was just the deposit. Once the sword was forged, he'd still have to pay another 400 taels. Providing the materials himself, the cost to forge a sword was outrageously high. The man in blue cautiously said, Young hero may not be aware, but the casting process for Xianlei iron is extremely complex. I'm not exaggerating when I say that within the entire Wangchun city, only we are capable of casting it, and it's a lengthy and laborious process. This truly is the lowest price. 700 taels of silver. He had caused a slaughter on the graveyard that day, and even looted valuables didn't add up to this much. Seeing his troubled expression, the man in blue said respectfully, Young hero, what do you think of this arrangement? After you have your sword cast, there will probably be about 1.5 gene of Xianlei iron left from these stakes. At that time, you can give it to our shop as payment for crafting. With that, Duan Yun roughly understood the value of Xianlei iron. It was indeed much more expensive than gold. Thanks to the sponsorship of some old irons from the Thunder God and Mother sect. Duan Yun nodded and responded, How can I be sure you won't mix in something fake? This stuff was so pricey. He couldn't afford to be careless. The man in blue smiled. Young hero, you worry too much. You can't trust the reputation of the Great Furnace? How about this? I'll leave my wife with you, and you can return her when you come to collect the sword. At that moment, the sweet lady actually walked over to Duan Yun, not shy in the slightest. Duan Yun, using his own wife as collateral, this truly is the style of the Mo sect. Duan-yun stood up and said, I shall not take someone's beloved from them. It's sufficient to come and collect it at the agreed time. Afterwards, he took the receipt and left. Yes, Duan-yun had also figured it out. If this guy dared to be dishonest and skimp on his Shinlei iron, then he would kill him and all of his accomplices. If one conducts business without integrity, he would swindle many people, cause countless to be ruined and lose their homes and lives. Killing such a man would be akin to removing a scourge for the people. After Duan-yun left, the woman smiled sweetly and said to the man in blue, I wonder how many more valuable things he has on him. With his hand, the man lifted her chin and asked, So, are you disappointed she didn't take you with her to find out? Not at all, I just think. Don't get the wrong idea about this man. At such a young age, he is capable of handling such a fine piece. How could he be mediocre? The man in blue mused thoughtfully. Shining had just returned to Yuju Villa, only to hear the murmuring gossip of the Morong brothers. So, is it a little sister? Shining was not happy and said, I just went out for a stroll. Who cares about any sister? Morong brothers saw her expression and burst into laughter, saying, So there really is a new sister. What does she look like? Are you pretty? Or is she prettier? Shut up. Go to sleep. You don't want your sister coming to kill you sometime. If you ask me, she should tear your mouth up before she kills you. Shining said angrily. Morong brothers couldn't help but express their surprise. Getting this angry out of embarrassment? Just how pretty is this new sister? Shining was so angry she almost threw a brick at him and then stormed off. Bamboo. Amidst the green bamboo, there was a pond of cyan blue water. Shining was bathing in the pond with a frustrated expression, mingled with some worry. She hadn't expected that Morong brothers would actually be right. It wasn't just one sister this time, but two sisters, a pair of beauties at that. From eavesdropping, she knew that these two sisters actually took a liking to Duan-yun, and despite knowing he was old demon Duan's son, and themselves being goddess catchers, they chose to help him. Where are your goddess catcher principles? For a moment, she felt somewhat angry, because she felt her liking for Duan-yun was similar. So, you're like this with every sister, huh? You womanizer. Thinking of this, Shining couldn't help but get heated, and even had the urge to chop Duan-yun up. The thought startled her. She couldn't help but think of the curse of the demon blade. She had promised Duan-yun that she would never chop him because she thought such a thing would never happen. And yet, here she was actually contemplating it. How bizarre. Could it be that what Morong brothers said was true? Am I really his sister? Same father, different mothers? Same mother, different fathers? Wait, if it is the problem with my father, does that mean those twin goddess catchers are also my sisters? Impossible. That's too preposterous. Even though she knew it was ridiculous, Shen Ying's expression did not relax and was even more worried. The rippling blue water caressed her body, and as she grazed her chest, her originally unremarkable curves suddenly became exceptionally full. Surprisingly not any smaller than Lang Yiming and Lang Yishue. The silvery moonlight reflected on her satin-like figure. Sometimes, even Shining felt shy looking at herself. But now she had no time for that, because she thought it might really be possible that she was related to those two divine catchers. The women of the Shin family had always been known for one trait, big chests. And those two sisters had big chests too. No way. For 2 consecutive days, Shining neither cooked nor brought back anything to eat, as if someone had offended her. During such times, Duan-yun usually wouldn't bother her. Women, after all, always have those few days every month. Poking at them during such times would only invite trouble. But he had avoided her, and yet she took the initiative to come and pick a fight with him. Whether he was practicing with a sword, she'd say his posture was ugly. If he was eating, she'd say he ate as much as a pig. Even washing his face would warrant a comment like, "Why is your face so big? You're simply wasting water. My handsome face is comparable to Takashi Kaneshiro. How could it be big?" Duan-yun finally couldn't bear it and said, "Did you eat gunpowder? What did you say?" "Nothing." With that said, Duan-yun quickly made his escape. This was the first time Duan Yun realized just how apt the saying tigress was. He couldn't help admiring Murong brothers for being chased by 5 such tigresses. The pressure wasn't any less than him, the young hero Duan, who had faced numerous demons in battle. At night, Yuzhu was silent. No matter how imposing old demon Duan's reputation was or how attractive the traces on the graveyard were, no one would go there at this hour. After nightfall, both Yuzhu and the graveyard behind it returned to their usual spooky and profound atmosphere. The 3 people, including Duan Yun, went to bed after washing up. However, in the middle of the night, they were suddenly awakened by a series of knocking sounds. Thump, thump, thump. In the dead of night, there came a series of knocks on the door. The knocking wasn't loud but wasn't soft either, neither fast nor slow, giving off an eerie vibe. A visitor? The very statement that Yuzhu had a visitor was peculiar. Apart from them, who would come to such a haunted place? Duan Yun and Shining were the first to come out. The 2 of them walked toward the main gate, but as they approached it, the knocking stopped. The dim moonlight shone on the courtyard, enveloping it in darkness. "Who's there?" Duan Yun stood at the door, calling out. No response. All was silent, as if the knocking just now was an illusion. Duan Yun carefully opened the main gate and was startled, because at the gate stood 3 figures. 3 scarecrows. The one in the middle was dressed in bright red clothes, just like a groom. The shadows of the wall covered their bodies, making it impossible to see their faces clearly from this angle, which only added to the creepiness. Were those scarecrows the ones knocking? Duan Yun and Shining couldn't help but recall the rumors about scarecrows on the mountain, feeling a shiver run down their spines. Could it actually be a ghost? With that thought, even Duan Yun felt goosebumps all over. Holding Wenro, Duan Yun cautiously approached and realized the groom had a piece of skin on its face. He wasn't sure if it was pigskin or something else, but it was pasted on the scarecrow's head, with eyes and a nose drawn on it with an ink brush. The moonlight was faint, and as the face was shadowed, it wasn't clear to see. Suddenly, Duan Yun felt that this face looked familiar. Familiar? This is Chapter 96. Good brother, your sister is here to kill you. In the dead of night, the straw man dressed in a red robe had a human face painted on its skin. At the same time as it was terrifying, it also looked familiar to Duan Yun. He suddenly realized whose face it was. It was the Murong brothers. Duan Yun quickly turned his head back, only to find that the Murong brothers had not yet come out. Could it be that the Murong brothers are ghosts? This ghost mixed with them during the day and turned into a straw man dressed as a bridegroom officer at midnight? This was freaking terrifying. Duan Yun stopped his wild thoughts and called out, "Murong brothers, this guest is here for you." It wasn't until then that the Murong brothers sleepily crawled out. Indeed, still in a sleeping posture, he lay on the ground, his body sliding outwards. At this midnight hour, in this dilapidated mountain villa, it really felt like a ghost. If they hadn't known this guy was just this lazy, Duan Yun and Shining probably would have already been scared into swinging a blade to strike the ghost, or throwing a punch to smash it. Only when they got to the door did the Murong brothers slowly get up. Looking at the 3 straw men, he couldn't help but ask in confusion, "Are these looking for me?" Duan Yun commented sarcastically, "Doesn't that bridegroom officer look like you?" The Murong brothers walked closer and indeed found it somewhat resembled themselves, which also startled them. Although the brushstrokes on that face were rough, the expression was vivid, even a bit more handsome than the Murong brothers themselves. These straw men on the mountain have really become spirits, even drawing a face to knock on the door. Shining couldn't help saying. No doubt, such an incident happening in the dead of night was indeed eerie and horrifying. The Murong brothers wanted to take a closer look when suddenly, that piece of skin cracked open a slit, as if a person suddenly opened their mouth. "Be careful!" A string of silver-white substance suddenly thrust out from within. The Murong brothers reacted extremely fast, lying flat on the ground with exceptional smoothness and naturalness. Swoosh! That thing flew past right over his body. After falling to the ground, The Morong brothers moved their hands and feet, rushing towards the door like doing backstroke, extremely fast. And Duan Yun and Shining also retreated quickly, keeping in a state ready to protect the Morong brothers in front of them. The moment they entered the door, the Morong brothers pulled up their feet and also shut the door. But with a snap, the Morong brothers felt a pain in their foot and rolled on the spot. A bunch of silver-white hair had penetrated through the wooden door, wounding his foot and leaving traces of blood. Boom! The hair swelled explosively, and the wooden door instantly bore a large hole. And then, a woman's bewitching voice rose. "You faithless sweetheart! Sister is here to kill you." The white-haired witch, with such a voice and picture. Even Duan Yun and Shining, who were behind the Morong brothers, jumped in fright. The Morong brothers' foot was injured, but fortunately, he was always slippery-footed, so the injury was not serious. But he still did not dare to delay, his body gliding over the ground to the side again. Through the large hole in the courtyard door, it could be seen that the straw man dressed as a bridegroom officer had been broken open. Was that woman hiding inside just now? This was freaking too scary. The Morong brothers had just glided to the corner of the wall when suddenly, swoosh, another string of silver-white hair pierced through the wall, stabbing towards him. The Morong brothers barely dodged, but it was quite embarrassing, even tearing a hole through the sleeve of their clothes. This hair, like a living creature, disappeared at the hole just as quickly, particularly horrifying. At this time, the Morong brothers looked at Duan Yun, signaling with his eyes. "Give me the saber." Duan Yun raised his hand and threw the demon blade Wenro over. Just as Wenro was about to land in the Morong brothers' hands, suddenly, that hair that appeared out of nowhere swept up fiercely, and Wenro was swirled away. Duan Yun couldn't help but mock. "Why can't you even catch a saber properly?" The Morong brothers took a sharp breath, shocked. "Why did you throw it so high?" "Ah! You faithless sweetheart. Do you want to take a knife to cut someone? Then someone will also cut you into 18 pieces to commemorate our lost love." Bang, 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 bang. Several holes broke open in succession in the walls of the courtyard, with silver-white hair attacking like poisonous snakes, utterly terrifying. The Morong brothers could only run inside with a roll and a crawl, quickly hiding behind a pillar. The next moment, he hurriedly bent over, almost at the same time. A string of hair had pierced the pillar, swaying back and forth. While dodging, the Morong brothers called out, "Wan Wan, how did you become like this?" From the beginning to the end, Duan Yun and Shining had never seen the appearance of the white-haired witch, only her hair. Duan Yun had to admit that this white-haired witch was much more terrifying than the flower-fanatic sister before. "It's all because of you, my dear brother. Just because we are siblings, you rejected me and forgot about our engagement. You should remember. Today is the day we agreed to marry." A figure flashed on the courtyard wall, and a lady in red appeared. The lady's red dress was as vibrant as blooming roses, but her hair spilled over like a waterfall, some strands even moving like living creatures, looking extremely eerie. What rendered Duan Yun speechless the most was that her snow-white hair covered most of her face, which under the dim moonlight was impossible to see clearly. At this time, the Morong siblings were distancing themselves from her while saying, "Wan Wan, I don't mind if you hate me, just don't involve my friend." As soon as he finished speaking, the white-haired witch immediately fixed her gaze on Duan Yun and Shining, and the Morong siblings kept saying, "If you have something against me, take it out on me. Please don't do anything to them." Duan Yun and Shining couldn't help but retort, "Will you shut the hell up? Ha ha ha. Killing them would cause you pain, wouldn't it? That's perfect." The white-haired witch floated over, her hair starting to writhe. In the next moment, the hair suddenly surged like poisonous snakes, lashing out. "Damn! Embrace Sparrow Tail." Seeing this, Duan Yun summoned the white silk jade sword immortal Dharma image behind him, emitting more than a dozen jade sword finger sword energy shots. The white-haired witch's hair wrapped around her, shielding her body. The sword chi struck the strands, exploding like flowers, and she retreated 3 steps back. "Dear brother, Your friend is quite interesting. The white-haired witch showed half of her face, her expression wildly deranged. Whoosh! The yard stone slabs were pierced by the hair, and with a flick, they whooshed towards Duan Yun like a storm. Duan Yun, as the dual masters of sword and saber, was caught without a sword or saber in hand at the moment, so he could only muster his true chi to take the hits head-on. Tonight, he would also engage in a fistfight. Just then, a figure stood in front of him. The roaring fist power struck out like a shell, shattering the incoming stone slabs to dust. Shining was shrouded in fist power, her robes blooming with ripples. "Get out of here now," Shining said to Duan Yun behind her. Duan Yun asked with confusion, "Leave? Why should we leave?" Saying so, he launched a toe sword strike. This strike was sudden and sinister, finding a gap between the hair and injuring the white-haired witch's calf. "Ugh! Junior sister-in-law, I won't hold back then." With that, Duan Yun had already jumped out. The white-haired witch's calf had been torn open, but she didn't retreat and counterattacked Duan Yun desperately as he pressed his attack. A woman's attack is vicious, especially that of a deranged one. A clump of white hair instantly twisted together, stabbing at Duan Yun like a sharp sword. Duan Yun didn't dodge or avoid, lifting his arm to deliver an elbow sword strike. Bang! There was an explosion. Where the hair and elbow sword intersected, air waves tumbled, shattering the stone slabs beneath their feet into mud. Duan Yun, as if he didn't need to rest, raised his foot for another toe sword strike. The howling toe sword chi once again came forth. Remembering the previous lesson, the white-haired witch's silver strands barely defended against it. Her hair burst into flames from the impact of the sword chi, and Duan Yun seemed to get the upper hand. However, at that moment, a clump of the white-haired witch's hair insidiously crept along the ground and suddenly wrapped around Duan Yun's ankle. Pulling hard, Duan Yun lost his balance and toppled to the ground, causing the Murong siblings who had just rushed out with kitchen knives, and Shining to be shocked and pale. Duan Yun had been ensnared. At that moment, Duan Yun was being dragged away, and in the eyes of the others, it was as if he was being pulled into a terrifying abyss. For there lay a dense spread of silver-white hair. Under the night sky, the silver hair writhed menacingly. Just how dreadful this woman's silver hair was, one could see with their own eyes. "Ha ha ha ha! Dear brother, let me first properly entertain your friend." The deranged laugh of the white-haired which echoed in the night, chilling to the bone, but it was abruptly interrupted by another, even more frenzied voice. "Ha ha ha ha! Junior sister-in-law, I'm here to capture you alive. Embrace sparrow tail. Breaking body sword energy. Here I come." Chapter 97. I, Dr. Duan, specialize in treating younger sisters. Duan Yun's sword immortal Dharma image transformed behind him, changing from white silk to black silk, and his temperament shifted from pure and dignified to cold and ruthless. The next moment, his body emitted sword chi like silky rain, turning his entire form hazy like smoke. The key was his frenzied voice. "Sister, I'm coming to capture you alive." The Murong siblings, who were originally concerned about his safety, reacted in an instant. This is old demon Duan for crying out loud. Though blamed for countless unfounded accusations, he is still the old demon. Thus, they immediately started worrying about their sister again. "Wan Wan, be careful." White-haired witch Fu Wanjun was also startled. Looking at the man in front of her, so clean and appearing as if a feeble doctor, she thought he would be easy to handle, but his actions were unexpected. His opening move was the extremely difficult sword finger combined with the Dharma image, showing no lack of strength. It made sense. After all, who could be mediocre to associate with this heartless man? An insidious sword chi sneak attack followed from his toes, wounding her. By that time, Fu Wanjun was raging with anger. Ever since she cultivated the mysterious jade heart scripture, resulting in her white hair, she had rarely been injured. Or more accurately, she had not encountered anyone who could injure her. Tonight's experience enraged her, and she was ready to vent her anger on this heartless man's friend. The moment she saw the transformed Dharma image and heard that delirious laughter, she felt her temples throbbing, a sensation she hadn't felt in a while. Eerie, frenzied. She knew she was known as the white-haired witch in the martial world, but the scholarly-looking man in front of her now seemed more demonic and insane than she was. She was clearly in control, able to trap and torture him with her hair at any moment. Yet now she had the unsettling anticipation of being the one to suffer next. Until the cry, "Wan Wan, be careful!" Fu Wanjun, frightened, hastily retreated. Her silver-white hair curled around to protect her front. Almost simultaneously, dozens of jade sword finger sword energies formed arcs and blasted towards her. Her silver-white hair, tough and filled with mysterious jade inner strength, was blasted into curls. The white-haired witch, originally with straight hair, was nearly turned into curly waves. More importantly, Fu Wanjun felt her feet leave the ground and soon the world spun around her. Duan Yun's black silk jade sword True Qi now followed arc-shaped trajectories, not as whimsical and unpredictable as before, but with a hidden regularity. This pattern was to lift Fu Wanjun off the ground and then spin her like a top. After Duan Yun's frenzied lashing, just as he was about to rush in and complete the capture, a loud bang rang out, and the body of the white-haired witch slanted down to the ground. Shening stood there holding a brick, smiling joyfully. "The capture of the white-haired witch was my doing," Duan Yun exclaimed excitedly. "You tricked me. You ambushed me. You stole my credit." With that, he tried to press down on the body of the white-haired witch on the ground. Shening quickly lifted up Fu Wanjun, objecting, "She was felled by my brick." Soon after, the two argued over who got the credit for capturing the white-haired witch. During the quarrel, the body of Fu Wanjun swung side to side in their hands, just like a large doll. For a moment, the Murong sibling felt that these two were the real demon and witch, and Wan Wan was so pitiful in their hands. "Let go of my sister!" Murong, carrying a kitchen knife, shouted loudly. The white-haired witch was ultimately captured. Due to Duan Yun's sword Qi bombardment, her long straight white hair had turned into curled waves, and her face was revealed. Even in unconsciousness, her visage was pure and lovely. Seeing this, Shunning commented, "Murong doesn't look so great, but his sister is quite pretty." Indeed, especially since Duan Yun had styled her hair into curls. She even had a bit of an exotic charm. Murong brothers strongly disagreed, saying, "I actually look quite all right. I just haven't tidied myself up." "You call this not tidying up?" Duan Yun and Xin Ying said with a look of disdain. Today, the Murong brothers had washed their face at least 5 times, their feet 4 times, and had changed their hairstyle thrice. Afterwards, he stood watch beside the unconscious white-haired witch. Although upon meeting again, lovers had turned into siblings, and tender affection had turned into murderous intent, Murong brothers still wanted to maintain their elegance. For a moment, his emotions became a bit more melancholic. Duan Yun kindly advised, "Continuing like this isn't a solution." Murong brothers struggled. But what other solution could there be? Being lovers was no longer an option, turned into siblings, and now the sister wanted to kill her brother. This curse of the 12 layers of spring rain was truly terrible. Your sister starts stabbing people with her hair at the slightest disagreement, as if she's gone mad. If you ask me, we should stick to the original plan. Lock her up in the cellar and properly treat her, perhaps she might get better. I just recently learned a thunder and lightning healing method. It might work wonders. Saying so, Duan Yun released lightning from his palm, eyeing Fu Wanjun with a predatory gaze. Murong brothers quickly shielded their sister behind them, nervously saying, "Don't mess around." Just then, Fu Wanjun awoke, and the first thing she saw was Duan Yun releasing lightning from his hand, causing her to curl up in fright. Immediately after, she felt a terrible pain in her head. Before she fainted, she felt she had been struck by something blunt, and then she passed out. The one who struck her was probably that woman in the Taoist robe. For a moment, she found this place to be terrifying. Now, seeing the unfaithful man protect her behind him, Fu Wanjun's eyes became complex and pained. Faithless scoundrel, let me go. Fu Wanjun struggled. Morong brothers then realized she had woken up and hurriedly said, Wan, calm down. Don't you dare call me that. Sister, go to hell. Scoundrel, you've made my life a misery. Duan Yun was watching this drama of bitter love and karmic ties. When Shining came over and said, other couples rejoice in their reunion. Why are you causing a scene here? Duan Yun seriously responded, I'm a doctor. I'm assessing the patient's condition. That was when Shining remembered, this guy seemed to really be a gynecologist. Wan. Suddenly, the situation took an abrupt turn. Waking up, Fu Wanjuan's hair once again began to flutter. Not only did she knock Morong brothers to the ground, but she twisted her body and pressed like a finger onto specific points on her body, as if to break free. The next instant, a remnant shadow flew past. This time, the white-haired witch Fu Wanjun reacted quickly, tilting her head to dodge the blow. The brick thrown by Shin Ying brushed past her head. Bad woman, why are you helping? With a thump, the brick, carrying a strange inner strength, rebounded off the wall and struck Fu Wanjuan's head again, causing her to faint once more. At that moment, Duan Yun walked over, looking at the white-haired witch and placing his hand on her skull. Morong brothers jumped in fright. What are you doing? Don't you see your sister is ill? I'm going to treat her, Duan Yun said with all seriousness. Treat her. It was then Morong brothers realized, this guy was indeed a doctor. A gynecologist at that. Wait, where are you taking her? By this time, Duan Yun had already hoisted Fu Wanjun up. To the cellar. How else can we treat her? Duan Yun said earnestly. Chapter 98. Young hero Duan is creating a new cultivation technique again. Morong, who loved his sister dearly, really saw her being taken by Duan Yun into the cellar. Although he did not understand why they were going to the cellar, nor how this gynecologist was supposed to treat his sister, what was strange was that Duan Yun really gave him a trustworthy impression. When acting as a young hero, he resembled a demon, but when acting as a doctor, he truly seemed like one. The same feeling appeared in Shin Ying's heart. Thus, the two followed them to the cellar. This cellar had been prepared by Duan Yun before, reinforced and widened on its existing foundation, and was quite spacious. In Duan Yun's words, it could imprison 10 sisters. In the dim cellar, Duan Yun lit an oil lamp. The way he carried the white-haired witch into the depths made him seem less trustworthy. He seemed more like a demon. The next scene literally blew Morong's mind. Because the way Duan Yun looked a moment ago was like a demon, his current image was definitely that of a demon. He saw electric light emerge from his palm and suddenly press on Fu Wanjuan's head. You! Don't speak. Duan Yun saw him getting agitated and spoke. His palm continued to gently move over Fu Wanjuan's head and said, Your sister indeed turned out this way because she practiced the demon technique. Is that so? Morong nervously asked. He was terrified that Duan Yun might suddenly emit a thick current of electricity and electrocute his sister. No problem, it just needs to be extracted, Duan Yun said while pressing on Fu Wanjuan's head. His posture indeed looked somewhat like taking a pulse. Extracted? How? Morong said again, his heart trembling with fear. Of course with my absorption the beaming divine skill. Saying so, Duan Yun splayed his fingers into a claw and firmly pressed down on Fu Wanjuan's head. A strange suction force immediately emanated from his palm, causing the white-haired witch's hair to flutter about. For a moment, the oil lamp's light flickered, casting Duan Yun's face, as he absorbed from the white-haired witch, in an intermittent light, exceedingly terrifying. You! Seeing this, Morong felt his heart jump to his throat. This scene was too wicked and demonic. He was worried his sister might be absorbed to death by Duan Yun in an instant. But Duan Yun was measured. Compared to the previous times when he aggressively absorbed from the disciples and elder of Thunder God and Mother sect, this time, Duan Yun was much gentler. This was his sister-in-law after all. He couldn't rush. Since realizing this beaming divine skill, the previous times he helped cleanse people were somewhat hasty, so he hadn't properly studied and developed the cultivation technique. This time was perfect. Having an excellent test subject, he could refine the depth of his divine skill. As for the question of whether his sister-in-law might have any issues from being absorbed, that was definitely not going to happen. He was a 1 in 10,000 cultivation genius and a professional gynecologist. How could he possibly harm while healing? True qi from Fu Wanjun's body slowly entered into his palm, and then into his body. Compared to the crazy true qi of the Thunder God and Mother sect, which contained the power of thunder and lightning, Fu Wanjun's true qi was more complex. A part of her true qi was normal, but another part had a twisted tension. Like her hair, which could coil like snakes and even bite. Especially now, Duan Yun discovered an especially thick strand of true qi, twisted and carrying a violent aura. This was it, the root of all problems. Duan Yun's brow slightly furrowed, and he started to apply more force. The oil lamp light suddenly shook even more violently, nearly extinguishing, and at the spot where Duan Yun's palm contacted Fu Wanjun, vortex-like ripples appeared. Murong was sweating all over. This was... Suddenly, Duan Yun and Fu Wanjun both opened their eyes, and at the same time, shivered. After that, Duan Yun raised his hand, and Fu Wanjun fell straight down. Shit! Murong rushed over immediately, holding Fu Wanjun, and anxiously asked, "What did you do?" Duan Yun replied seriously, "Healing her. It's almost done." Then, just now, Duan Yun explained, "At the critical moment of treating the illness, my thoughts suddenly aligned with those of the patient, and we both shivered together." "Really? That's it?" Murong asked nervously. Duan Yun nodded and said, "I guess it worked. You guess." Duan Yun's guess was very accurate. An hour later, Fu Wanjun woke up. Afterwards, she recovered a lot, at least mostly. The most violent and uncontrollable true qi within her was absorbed by Duan Yun, rendering her much more normal. At least she no longer acted like a deranged lover, obsessed with dismembering Murong to mourn her dead affection. She looked at Murong with a trace of resentment and said, "I won't kill you, but I still hate you." Murong bowed his head, not daring to respond. As Duan Yun had diagnosed, following her calamitous involvement with Murong, resentment inevitably brewed in Fu Wanjun's heart. Especially since Murong took no responsibility and chose to flee, this resentment intensified. In order to take revenge on Murong, she naturally doubled her effort in practicing the mysterious Jade Heart scripture that she had already cultivated to a certain level. Initially, she just wanted to beat Murong and scratch his face to vent her anger, but as her cultivation deepened, she found it increasingly difficult to control her resentment. Especially upon learning that Murong had several close female friends, her resentment surged uncontrollably. Thus, she turned white-haired overnight, and her power greatly increased, becoming the white-haired witch. In Fu Wanjun's words, it was as if she suddenly had another self. The previous self that wanted to scratch Murong's face became weaker, while the self that wanted to kill him and destroy everything about him grew stronger. She was once fearful and terrified, but these emotions quickly dissipated. It was as though she had fallen into an endless nightmare, replaced by this new self, unable to struggle at all. At this moment, Fu Wanjun stood up, bowing respectfully to Duan Yun, saying, "Thank you, Dr. Duan, for waking me from this nightmare." Duan Yun replied earnestly, "It's a minor matter. I've already charged the medical fees to Murong." "Humph, he should pay for it." Murong lowered his head. Then, Fu Wanjun looked puzzled and said, "But Dr. Duan, about my condition." Duan Yun nodded and said, "Don't worry, you'll be fine for a year or two. If you feel difficult to control, come see me again, and after a few more treatments you'll be completely well." "Thank you." Afterwards, Fu Wanjun prepared to leave. "Wan," Murong said with a complicated expression. "Murong, we have no relation anymore. Although we have the same father, I am not your sister, nor am I from the Murong family. I'm going back to my sect. Goodbye." With that, Fu Wanjun left very spiritedly. In contrast, Murong appeared reluctant to let go, not at all dashing or manly. Upon seeing this, Shunning said, "Can't you, a big man, stop being so fussy?" Morong, looking up at the sky with teary eyes, blurted, "You don't understand how sweet we were once, and now how much pain I am in. This pain penetrates the bone, making it impossible for me to." Seeing this, Duan Yun said, "I think he's also sick." Shining agreed, "I think so too. Bring him down to the dungeon. Let me have a good look." "Okay. No. I just want to feel the sadness and commemorate my lost love." Ah! In Yuju Villa, a joyful atmosphere filled the air again. At night, Duan Yun sat in his room, digesting the true qi he had absorbed from Fu Wanjun. It's undeniable that this true qi was truly aggressive, even evoking in him a violent desire to kill an unfaithful heart. Fortunately, he didn't have an unfaithful heart that had wronged him, so there was no need for killing. However, Fu Wanjun's situation served as a wake-up call for him. After the battle in the graveyard, the peace at Yuju Villa was merely momentary. After all, he had only killed the elders from the Thunder God and Mother Sect and Red House. There were still many formidable figures like sect leaders and tower masters, and although Peacock Demon was dead, who knows if there weren't more demons eyeing this young hero. After Murong practiced sword fighting, it was proven that he being a fallen man was intentionally fabricated. Someone was scheming against him. That person and their backing forces were extremely sinister, hiding behind the scenes, yet to surface. Indeed, as long as evil demons are not utterly defeated, peace can never be perfect. Thus Duan Yun decided to continue growing stronger to confront all possible enemies. But how to become stronger? It's been a while since I've created a new cultivation technique. Chapter 99. Come out, my netherworld jade sword immortal. In the evening, Chun Xiaolu walked along the path, humming a tune. Ever since he was young, he loved to take the path, not only because his name sounds similar to small path, but also because he is rather unremarkable himself. Very few people knew that he was actually a medicine cultivator. But as a medicine cultivator, he definitely wasn't qualified, or one could say diligent, because he didn't cultivate enough. Yet his strength still grew nicely, all thanks to him taking these small paths. He loved to steal other people's big medicine. The logic is the same as stealing a woman. No matter how well or tenderly you raise your own medicine, it can't compare to the thrill of stealing. Among medicine cultivators, there's generally an unspoken agreement to not interfere with each other, but not for Chun Xiaolu. Along the way, he even devoured 2 medicine cultivators. Naturally, the taste of medicine cultivators couldn't compare to big medicine. They were like old popular dishes, nutritious and chewy, but they were a bit difficult to digest. Even now, he occasionally still dreams of those 2 medicine cultivators he had eaten speaking to him. However, none of this was important anymore. As long as he continued walking the small paths, stealing and eating big medicine, he would eventually be invincible. At this moment, he performed a stance exercise, and then the scent of big medicine drifted into his nose. Within 10 miles, there must be a stalk of big medicine that had just matured, emitting a strong aroma. Having stolen so many times, he could even tell by smell that this big medicine was a woman. The taste of the big medicine is very delicious. The taste of women is also very delicious. If she is beautiful, he can do bad things before eating. For a moment, Chun Xiaolu became even more ravenous and quickened his steps. The winding path was quickly left behind him, and a small town came into view. At this hour, the townsfolk had just finished a hard day's labor and were in their most relaxed moment. In the town, wisps of cooking smoke rose gently. Some families had started their meals, and a few farmers sat squatting under the eaves with bowls, eating coarse rice and pickles with relish. Seeing this, Chun Xiaolu felt hungry, very hungry. As he arrived here, the scent of big medicine became very concentrated. He wished he could immediately cook it and drink the soup. Eventually, Chun Xiaolu arrived at a small courtyard. He moved as quietly as if his feet had meat pads, making no sound, probably even quieter than a walking cat. He wanted to give the big medicine a surprise. It must be said, the feeling of stealing was truly delightful. The courtyard only had 4 tiled houses. The largest one in the center was the living room, and that strong medicinal scent was wafting out from there. The starved Qin Xiaolu could no longer wait. He clenched his sword finger, and with a clang, pushed the door and entered. The next moment his body stiffened there. Although only the scent of one stalk of big medicine seemed present, the room was filled with about a dozen people. It was common to encounter the family of big medicine during a theft, and he usually just killed them all, then properly boiled the medicine for consumption. But this time, the scene before his eyes frightened him. All he saw were women, round-faced, square-faced, freckled-faced, big pancake-faced. Regardless of the type of face, most would not look very appealing on a woman, but the women in this room gave off a very feminine aura. In Qin Xiaolu's eyes, these were the kind of women to be forcibly dominated. But Qin Xiaolu now completely forgot about these thoughts, since he was terrified, because these women were all performing a sword stance similar to his, except for the stalk of big medicine. Behind the rest appeared the Dharma image of a man. That male Dharma image looked very handsome, almost like a gentle gynecologist. But when combined with this group of women, it formed a very terrifying scene. The remains of the sunset cast its light on Qin Xiaolu, and he only felt chills running down his back. Almost at the same time, all the women opened their eyes, and those gynecologist Dharma images all turned towards him. For a moment, Qin Xiaolu felt goosebumps all over, and his body hair stood on end. But he reacted quickly and said, "Sorry, wrong door." Saying so, he was about to close the door and leave. At that moment, the square-faced woman with a slightly bulging stomach let out a cold laugh and said, "Stop right there." Qin Xiaolu suddenly dared not move. "Junior Sister 9, do you see? If you don't diligently cultivate and you're insincere towards the heroic venerate, you'll be treated as big medicine to be consumed." That big medicine bowed its head, a face of shame uttering, "Understood, Senior Sister. Sisters acting for heaven. How can jade girls not act for heaven?" Qin Xiaolu suddenly felt a life-threatening crisis, and thus his leg muscles tensed. True qi surged throughout his body. As he prepared to leap up from the ground, he leaped up, very high. Probably even a real eagle would struggle to soar so high at once. But he died. With a thud, Qin Xiaolu's body, which had soared high, plummeted back down, covered with dozens of blood-soaked holes. His body convulsed. Yes, in the instant he tried to ascend to the skies, sword chi finger had riddled his body like a sieve. And so he died, eyes wide open in death. Being named Heroic Venerate, performing heroic deeds, Jade Sword Sect, acting for heaven, Jade Sword Sect, embodying the way for heaven. Before dying, Qin Xiaolu heard these voices and saw behind these women Dharma images waving many arms, more terrifying than evil spirits. What a group of mad women! Duan Yun stood on the graveyard mountain, recalling his past experience battling a horde of demons. It could be said that this was one of the rare brutal battles in his life, and without Murong brothers and Shining assisting him, he might not have been able to handle Peacock. He couldn't help but think, if in the future, without Murong brothers and Shining, he'd face an opponent like the Peacock Demon, how could he defeat him? If Murong brothers and Shining were not there, then he must find a power that could replace them. Suddenly, behind Duan Yun, the white silk jade sword Immortal Dharma image materialized. If the sword Immortal Dharma could possess the strength of the Murong brothers and Shining, wouldn't it be equivalent to having their assistance? But how could the sword Immortal Dharma become stronger? Momentarily, behind him, the sword Immortal Dharma appeared white, then turned black, flickering uncertainly on this eerie grave mountain. Suddenly, Duan Yun's brain, filled with extraordinary wisdom, had a spark of insight. Through the power of his skin, he made the sword Immortal Dharma possess 2 forms of transformations, significantly increasing its strength. But after all, the skin is only external. He must give the sword Immortal an inner essence. What if he directly turns it into Cheng's visualization? A real woman? A woman wearing black silk and white silk. Does this sound exciting? Duan Yun pondered. He felt it was exciting, so he tried it. And thus, in his sea of consciousness, the sword immortal was no longer just a Dharma image wearing a skin but a person. A person with flesh and blood meridians, dantian, big chest, long legs, very pretty. He thought hard, exerting all his strength. The sword immortal Dharma image behind him became increasingly distinct. Sweat began to emerge on Duan Yun's forehead. Such visualization was geometrically challenging. Even for him, a 1 in 10,000 cultivation prodigy. It was difficult, hence to drive it was even more challenging. Turning the virtual into reality was already difficult, let alone making the Dharma image almost a living person. Wait, turning virtual into reality. Duan Yun's brain, filled with extraordinary wisdom, flashed again with insight. The next moment, the graveyard's death energy flocked towards the sword immortal Dharma image. Consequently, the somewhat obscure meridians and dantian of the sword immortal Dharma image suddenly became prominent. Even the black stockings obtained the hues of death energy. Boom! Duan Yun's sea of consciousness buzzed, and he opened his eyes. He raised his head and looked towards the sword immortal, and at that moment the sword immortal also looked towards him. Her body flowed with death energy, carrying a deep netherworldly aura. Her eyes even showed a trace of emotion. It worked. Did the sword immortal come to life? Chapter 100. Old Demon Duan has gone even crazier. Death energy from the graveyard gathered towards the sword immortal Dharma image, making it look even more vivid, concrete, and infused with a ghostly aura. As they locked gazes, Duan Yun could even perceive the emotions in her eyes. Duan Yun's narrowed his eyes slightly, and in a split second, he and Jade Sword Immortal connected in thought. It was a peculiar feeling, similar to the unity of mind and soul felt when enduring the chilling moments with his martial sister. At that time, they could read each other's thoughts and emotions clearly, as if they stood naked in their truths, without any reservations. He and Jade Sword Immortal were in such a state now. However, compared to the white-haired witch's younger martial sister, the Jade Sword Immortal, merged with death energy, had much simpler thoughts. At this moment, Jade Sword Immortal's black silk gained an extra layer of fine gloss, making her appear more real and vivid. Then, 5 or 6 Jianghu people descended from the graveyard. They had just finished exploring the traces of old Demon Duan's bloody battle with several heroes. Although a rain had passed and turned the area into muddy footprints, the group was still full of wonder. To join in the excitement, even if they didn't understand, they pretended as if they did, else their peers would look down on them. In the martial arts community, it's essential to keep up. Otherwise, one would be looked down upon and feared to be murdered. Ah! Suddenly, a Jianghu person shuddered and looked towards a certain direction. What's with the screaming? Did you see old Demon Duan? A companion asked with a disdainful tone. Ah! Ah! As everyone turned to look, they all trembled in fear, breaking out in cold sweats. In the depths of the bamboo grove atop a grave mound, a woman's figure appeared, looking like she had just crawled out of the grave. If not a ghost, then what? Despite being some distance away, everyone felt the sinister and terrifying aura, as if the woman could reach out and drag them into the netherworld hell. Ghosts! Someone screamed, and thereafter, the group hurriedly scrambled down the mountain. Duan Yun, who was secretly controlling the netherworld Jade Sword Immortal behind the grave mound, heard the commotion, looked curiously at the scene, and then headed down the mountain. At the foot of the mountain was a bamboo grove housing a clear spring. Duan Yun stood with the netherworld Jade Sword Immortal in front of the spring, casting their reflections upon the water. To think they called such a beauty a ghost, those people must be blind. Duan Yun couldn't help but remark. Now, although the Jade Sword Immortal possessed a sinister and terrifying aura, she had many exquisite details. Her lips were bright red, her hair cascaded like a waterfall, and her black stockings even had a delicate jade-like sheen, looking very attractive. She was the epitome of a cold, aloof beauty in black silk. At Duan Yun's comment, the netherworld Jade Sword Immortal lightly nodded, indicating agreement. So, let's try some sword techniques. Spin, 8 layers of spring rain. Damn it, spin. Almost simultaneously, the sword Wenro in Duan Yun's hand buzzed. The jade sword immortal behind him showed a hint of irritation, and she too adopted a sword stance. In an instant, Duan Yun and Jade Sword Immortal were in sync. Spin! Damn it, spin! Miles away, the Murong brothers, who were fast asleep, suddenly woke up, looking confused. Another nightmare? The bell-like sound of swords clashing arose, with 6 layers of spring rain breaking out from the sword, causing the water in the spring to ripple. In the next moment, the spinning 6 layers of spring rain and the 2 layers from the netherworld jade sword immortal merged perfectly as ink collided with light hues, like a monochrome landscape painting fusing beautifully. With a swish, the black bamboos by the spring trembled slightly, showing no sign of anomaly. Duan Yun sheathed his sword, walking back. After taking several dozen steps, the black bamboos, as if blown by the wind, suddenly tilted, collapsing in waves. 8 layers of spring rain, truly powerful. Duan Yun was certain that if the peacock demon resurrected, even without the help of Murong brothers and Shining, he could slay the enemy. His rapport with the netherworld jade sword immortal was incomparable to outsiders like the Murong brothers. At critical moments, one must rely on one's own woman. For a moment, he really didn't know how to address the reborn jade sword immortal. Alas, it's a pity you're still not strong enough. If you could unleash 3 layers of spring rain, then we could attempt the 9 layers of spring rain. Duan Yun sighed. The netherworld jade sword immortal's eyes flickered with slight annoyance. As the jade sword immortal, despite being completely submissive to Duan Yun, feeling aggrieved by being compelled to use a sword and being deemed weak was inevitable. Cluelessly, Duan Yun walked towards Yushur town. He knew that if he could slay more demonic outsiders in the future, allowing the jade sword immortal to absorb more fresh death energy, she would undoubtedly become even more formidable. Then, their union wouldn't just stop at 9 layers of spring rain. Even 10 layers would be possible. However, as he neared Yushur town, Duan Yun realized a problem. The Dharma image of the jade sword immortal, merged with death energy, wouldn't easily dissipate now. Wandering with a Dharma image in tow could indeed frighten ordinary people. Thus, with a thought, Duan Yun said, "Dismiss!" The jade sword immortal Dharma image shifted gently, transforming into a black circular ring that melded into Duan Yun's belt. It can be said that the netherworld jade sword immortal was now wrapped around his waist, ready at his call. Truly, it couldn't be more considerate. In the afternoon, Shining went to bathe at the pond as usual, but ended up walking around twice, thinking she had gone to the wrong place. Who's the silly bird that chopped down all the bamboo? Duan Yun arrived in Yushur town with the intent to buy some wine and meat to celebrate his initial success in mastering the divine skill, and also to inquire about the business news. However, the bloodthirsty storyteller who had been lurking around started his storytelling again. Terrifying. Terrifying. A group of young women engaging in such misdeeds. Is this a collapse of natural law, or a distortion of morality? Hearing this title, Duan Yun sat down in the tea house. Since the graveyard became popular, the number of shops in Yushur town had increased. Previously, if one wanted to listen to stories while sipping tea, they had to go to Small Spring Town, but now Yushur town has it, and the storyteller is still Old Gua, the one with a broken leg. Recently, in the regions of Yun State and Laizhou, the Jade Sword sect has emerged out of nowhere. The disciples of this sect, calling themselves Jade Girls, act in the name of justice and engage in killing sprees, turning the tranquil martial world into chaos. The Feng Lu sect's second young master Lu, who has been knowledgeable and kind-hearted since his youth, teased a married man by the riverside, merely wanting a jest, but 2 jade girls descended from the heavens and pierced his body with dozens of holes. How unjust! County Magistrate Gao of He-Shi County embezzled thousands of gold, barely enough to cover the expenses of his 7 mistresses outside. Yet, a square-faced jade girl descended from the heavens and pierced his body with more than 10 holes. How terrifying is that? Moreover, the number of such women is growing like bamboo shoots after rain, even overshadowing the fairies of Red House. Are they not afraid of being dealt with for causing such chaos? Someone questioned. Dealt with? They champions of justice? Who would dare touch them? Old Gua clapped his wooden gavel and asked. How come, nowadays they dare to uphold justice so openly? Someone said discontentedly. Heroes champion justice without flaunting it, but some people? What about those people on the mountain that day? Saying so, Old Gua pointed towards the graveyard. The crowd was startled and then realized. Normally, whether young heroes, female heroes, or grand heroes, regardless of how audacious they were, needed to consider many aspects and notify in advance to avoid discord, but Old Demon Duan was different. Old Demon Duan enjoyed pretending to be a young hero, indulging in the game of championing justice. Who would dare oppose him? Surely, these jade girls can't be linked to Old Demon Duan, can they? Someone asked. You're right. The Jade Sword sect is indeed Old Demon Duan's doing. These jade girls revere him as their heroic venerate, and many of them have cultivated the demon dharma, gaining extraordinary power. Who would dare provoke such women? One can say, Old Demon Duan is crazier than ever. Not only does he enjoy impersonating a young hero himself, but now he is also leading a group of jade girls, ready to start killing at the slightest disagreement, all in the name of acting for heaven. This martial world is destined to be ravaged by storms of blood. The crowd couldn't help but inhale sharply. Duan Yun. He had been listening with great interest, even buying half a melon to enjoy, but as he ate, he unexpectedly found himself the topic of discussion. What do these jade girls have to do with me? For a moment, everyone was abuzz with discussion. Dharma image, Old Demon Duan's Dharma image. Old Gua, when you were on the mountain that day, did you see what Old Demon Duan looked like? Someone asked. Old Gua, thinking about his tragic experience of rolling down the mountain, said excitedly, Of course I saw him very clearly. Speaking, he looked around and suddenly pointed at Duan Yun and said, That Old Demon Duan and this gentleman bear some resemblance, having a handsome and pleasing appearance, even much like a gentle and kind doctor. But that's all just appearance. Duan Yun. Old Demon Duan's methods are extremely vicious, and his Jade Sword sect is a bunch of mad women. If one day you suddenly encounter such a person claiming to be a young hero, or encounter a woman with such a Dharma image appearing behind her, remember, run, the farther the better. If you really can't escape, remember, comply with them. You must say you're also a good person who dares to act justly. The storyteller Old Gua talked eloquently. Then, noticing a change in Duan Yun's expression, he said, This young gentleman, please don't mind. I merely used your young and handsome appearance as an example. Duan Yun couldn't help but say, What if I mind? If you mind, you could break this leg of mine that's already broken to vent your anger. Old Gua stretched out his leg wrapped with branches and said. Duan Yun waved his hand, generously letting it go. Old Gua immediately smiled and said, Sir, you don't look like a petty person. My judgment of people is always accurate. At this point, someone asked, With Old Demon Duan wreaking havoc like this, is there no one to stop him? Old Gua shook his fan and continued, How could that be possible? During the battle at the graveyard, Old Demon Duan established his notorious demon name, but the Red House and Thunder God and Mother Sect aren't the types to easily concede defeat. The 3 Tower Masters of the Red House and the sect leader of the Thunder God and Mother Sect are all legendary figures. Old Demon Duan stands little chance against them. Moreover, Peacock Demon's close friend from the 12 star signs, Zhu Haimian, has already put the word out to torment Old Demon Duan beyond recognition. Each of the demon names in the 12 star signs is not inferior to Peacock Demon. Old Demon Duan can deal with 1 at a time, but can he handle 2, 3, or even 4 or 5? On hearing this, Duan Yun felt his knowledge greatly expanded. So there was so much intrigue and demonic dealings hidden within this. So he asked, Are there 12 people in the 12 star signs? Why don't they just attack together? At this, the storyteller Old Gua smiled and said, Young master, you are still young. You missed the heyday of the 12 star signs. They initially had 12 people, but over the years, several died from their demonic practices exploding, 3 fought to death in a duel with their enemy, the 8 mysterious Dragon King. Only about 5 or 6 are left. But as I said earlier, any one of these 5 or 6, with a demon name and methods not inferior to Peacock Demon, just 2 or 3 together, old Demon Duan would really suffer. Look, it won't be long before a bloody storm hits the Jade Sword sect, and then there will be a good show to watch. Hearing this, Duan Yun felt somewhat grateful to this very knowledgeable old Gua. Without him, he wouldn't have known any of this, so he rewarded him with a silver ingot. That evening, amid the screams in the alley, old Gua broke his leg again, coincidentally the same right leg he talked about during his storytelling. Some suspected the young gentleman was behind it, but unfortunately, there was no evidence. Old Gua, lying on the stretcher, even said, "That young man at first glance looked kind and not one to hold grudges, plus he rewarded me with a big ingot of silver. Sadly, all the reward silver I had was robbed that day.